We all know that life can feel heavy sometimes. Whether it's a mind racing at night, worries piling up for tomorrow, or even tiny things like a single thought refusing to quiet down. But have you ever wondered why some people manage to stay calm even in moments that would make most of us panic? Or why a simple breath can change how the whole body feels? Tonight, we explore that mystery. Welcome to Listen to Buddha's Teachings, India 500 BCE, Buddhist Sleep Story. In today's video, we'll talk about how ancient wisdom can bring peace to the modern mind. So let's not waste any time, and let's begin. The night settles softly around you now, and as the world quiets, your mind begins to slow. Ahead of you lies a gentle path, dimly lit by lanterns swaying in the warm Indian breeze. Each step feels lighter than the last, as though the worries you carried only moments ago are slipping away, falling behind you like petals on the dusted ground. In the distance, a soft glow calls your attention, calm, steady, welcoming. You follow it without effort, guided by something deeper than thought. Soon, you arrive at a clearing where an ancient Bodhi tree stretches its branches wide like open arms. Its leaves shimmer with the faintest golden tint, catching the moonlight as though holding tiny stars. Beneath this sacred canopy sits the Buddha, cross-legged, serene, radiating the quiet presence of someone who has touched a truth far beyond fear or confusion. His eyes rest half-closed, like the pause between one breath and the next. Calm, unhurried, aware. You take a seat nearby, not too close, not too far, exactly where you feel naturally drawn to be. The grass beneath you is soft, warmed by the heat of the day, and the air carries hints of lotus and sandalwood drifting from a nearby riverbank. Even the insects have quieted, as though nature itself leans in to listen. Here, in this stillness, your heartbeat slows, your breathing deepens, and you begin to feel a different kind of silence. One that does not demand anything, one that simply holds you. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, the Buddha begins to speak. Each word flows like water over smooth stones, gentle, comforting, and yet unshakably clear. He speaks of awakening, not as something unreachable or mysterious, but as something already growing within you, like a seed waiting for the right moment to open. Awakening, he says, is seeing things as they are, without the fog of fear or expectation, without the pressure of who you think you must be. It is the moment you finally breathe without rushing, finally see without judging, finally exist without running from yourself. As he speaks, you notice how his presence shifts the air around you. It becomes easier to sit, easier to breathe, easier to simply be. Thoughts that once felt loud and restless soften into the background. The mind that struggled to stay still begins to settle naturally, like a snow globe after it's been set down. You feel held by something ancient yet familiar, as though you've sat beneath this tree before, in another lifetime or another dream. The Buddha's voice continues, warm and steady, guiding you deeper into this moment. He tells you that awakening doesn't happen in an instant of lightning or fire. It unfolds like dawn, slowly, layer by layer. It begins when you are willing to look gently at your own heart, when you allow yourself to feel, to notice, to care. He invites you to listen, not only with your ears, but with the quiet space behind your ribs, the place where the breath begins. You let his words sink in, like rain sinking into dry earth, nourishing something hidden. The night feels softer now, and even the glow of the Bodhi tree seems to deepen, as though responding to the calm building within you. The Buddha lifts his gaze slightly, meeting your eyes with a soft understanding. For a moment, everything feels simple, clear, whole. He reminds you that every journey begins with just one step, and you have already taken it by sitting here, by breathing, by being willing to listen. The path to peace isn't found by escaping the world, but by meeting life with awareness, moment by moment, breath by breath. You feel your body soften further, as though it finally trusts the ground beneath you. Then his voice shifts gently, guiding your attention toward the teachings that shaped his awakening. He explains that to walk the path, one must first understand the nature of the world, the patterns that shape our hearts, the truths that hold both our suffering and our freedom. The glow of the Bodhi tree flickers softly as he pauses, letting the quiet fill the space between each word. And with the ease of night turning into dawn, the Buddha begins to introduce the first essential teaching, an understanding that will help you see your life with new eyes, a teaching that will carry you deeper into the heart of peace. The Buddha's voice settles deeper into the night air, warm and steady, like a lantern gently brightening the darkness. You remain seated beneath the Bodhi tree, feeling the quiet weight of his presence, and the calm within you grows. He speaks again, softer now, as though addressing not just your ears, but the tender spaces inside you, the ones that carry memories, hopes, fears, and the quiet ache you rarely show the world. His words guide you inward, toward the very heart of the human experience. He begins by acknowledging something universal, that every being who has ever lived knows what it means to hurt. Not because life is cruel, he says, but because to feel is part of being alive. Suffering is not a sign of failure, nor a punishment, nor a flaw in who you are. It is simply one truth among many, a friend you may not want, yet one who arrives again and again, patiently waiting at your door. You felt it in sadness that curled itself inside your chest, in the sting of disappointment, in moments when nothing seemed to go right, or in the long nights when sleep refused to come. And hearing him name it with such gentleness makes it feel suddenly less heavy, less shameful, as if you have been granted permission to finally breathe. The Buddha explains that suffering shows itself in countless forms. It may appear as the loss of someone you love, leaving an empty space where warmth once lived. It may come as loneliness, even when you sit among others. It may be the quiet pressure of wanting life to be different, better, easier, more certain. Sometimes suffering is sharp and overwhelming, like a storm. Other times it is soft and persistent, like a whisper you can't quite ignore. But no matter the form it takes, he reminds you that you are not the only one who feels it. Every person you pass, every stranger you've never met, every ancestor stretching back through time, has carried their own invisible weight. He pauses to let his words settle, and the silence that follows feels sacred. The leaves rustle gently above you, as if nature agrees. in this stillness, you recognize how often you've tried to hide your pain or pretend it didn't exist. But here, under the Bodhi tree, the Buddha invites you to look at your suffering not with rejection or fear, but with gentle eyes, with understanding, with patience, as one might look at a small child who is frightened and only needs to be held. He tells you that suffering becomes more painful when we resist it, when we push it away, deny it, or judge ourselves for feeling it. But when we meet it with compassion, it softens. It begins to loosen its grip. This is what understanding truly means. Not that we solve suffering all at once, but that we acknowledge it honestly, that we make space for it, that we allow ourselves to feel what is real without turning away. You feel a warmth in your chest as these words sink in. The Buddha's voice continues, calm and unwavering, explaining that this understanding is the first of the Four Noble Truths, a doorway through which all deeper wisdom flows. To walk a path toward peace, one must first see clearly what stands in its way. And suffering, he says, is not an enemy. It is a teacher, a guide pointing toward the places within us that long for healing, for awakening, for release. As you listen, a memory rises. Perhaps a recent worry. Perhaps a fear you haven't spoken aloud. For a moment, it stirs discomfort, but then you imagine looking at it the way the Buddha describes, with gentle eyes, and something shifts. Not a dramatic change, but a softening, like a knot beginning to loosen. The Buddha continues, explaining that recognizing suffering does not mean drowning in it. Instead, it allows you to see the patterns that shape your life, the reactions, the longings, the disappointments, and understand that they arise from somewhere deeper. Like footprints in the sand, they point toward a source. And to understand the source is to gain the power to free yourself from its hold. The night deepens around you, but instead of darkness, you feel clarity forming within. The air is cool and comforting, carrying the distant hum of night creatures and the subtle fragrance of lotus blooming near the river. The Buddha's presence feels steady beside you, like a pillar of calm anchoring the world. You sense that he is guiding you not into sorrow, but toward insight, toward the beginnings of a peaceful mind. And as the Bodhi leaves shimmer gently overhead, he prepares to lead you deeper still. Understanding suffering is the first step, but to truly walk the path toward peace, you must also understand where suffering comes from, how it takes root within the heart, and why it arises again and again. With a quiet breath, the Buddha begins to guide you toward this next truth, inviting you to look more closely at the origins of your pain and discover how freedom begins. The Buddha's words linger in the night air, gentle yet profound, and you feel a subtle shift within you, like a door quietly opening somewhere deep in the mind. Having looked closely at suffering with honesty and compassion, you begin to sense that understanding it is only the beginning. The Buddha's gaze drifts upward toward the rustling leaves, as if listening to something only he can hear. And when he speaks again, his voice carries a new kind of clarity. It is as though he is preparing to guide you deeper, inviting you to look beneath the surface of your experience, toward the hidden roots that nourish all your moments of pain. He explains that suffering does not arise out of nowhere. Just as a flame needs fuel to burn, and a river needs a source from which its waters flow, the struggles within the human heart come from causes. These causes are often subtle, quiet, woven into your thoughts and emotions so completely that you hardly notice them. But when you begin to see them, even faintly, their power begins to fade. The Buddha speaks of one root in particular, one that lies at the center of so much human unhappiness: craving. Craving, he says, is the restless wanting that pulls your heart in countless directions. It is the belief that something outside yourself, a possession, a person, an achievement, a moment, a feeling, will finally make everything right. It whispers that peace lies just a little farther ahead, if only you can grasp the next thing. You've felt it before. The urge to chase an outcome, the fear of losing something you love, the tension of wishing things were different. Craving doesn't always roar. Sometimes it murmurs so softly you mistake it for hope or ambition. But underneath is the same impulse, a reaching that never quite ends. The Buddha uses the image of a river to describe it. Imagine a river that constantly rushes forward, never resting, always hungry for more water to carry. It flows endlessly, unable to stop itself, unable to consider whether the movement brings it peace. In the same way, craving pushes your thoughts from one desire to the next, offering momentary satisfaction, but never true stillness. If the river could pause, even for a moment, it might notice the beauty around it, the moon reflected on its surface, the gentle sway of the reeds along its banks. But caught in its own momentum, it rushes past these moments of peace without realizing they were there. You listen quietly, feeling how deeply this truth resonates. You recall moments in your life when you chased an idea of happiness, believing it would finally satisfy you, only to find yourself wanting something else once you reached it. The Buddha is not condemning desire, nor urging you to reject joy. Instead, he is helping you recognize how clinging to desires, insisting they must unfold a certain way, creates tension and suffering. When you hold tightly to anything, even something beautiful, fear grows around it. Fear of change, fear of loss, fear of imperfection. But life is always changing, and clinging becomes a constant struggle against reality. Then the Buddha speaks of aversion, the opposite face of craving. Just as craving pulls you toward what you want, aversion pushes you away from what you don't want. It is the discomfort that arises when life doesn't match your expectations, the urge to escape difficult emotions, the frustration with things you cannot control. Aversion burns like a small fire inside the chest. The more you resist an experience, the hotter the fire grows. But when you acknowledge the moment without fighting it, the flames weaken, flicker, and slowly fade. The Buddha describes clouds drifting across the night sky. Some clouds are heavy and dark, others thin and pale. They come and go on their own, shaped by winds you cannot see. Thoughts and emotions behave the same way. When you cling to pleasant ones, craving forms. When you push unpleasant ones away, aversion forms. But if you watch them drift, acknowledging them without holding or resisting, you discover a spaciousness behind it all. A vast sky, that is never harmed by the passing clouds. As he speaks, you feel your breath deepening again. You sense the subtle tug of desires within you, the small flames of aversion that sometimes flicker in your chest, the thoughts drifting in your mind like clouds. And for the first time, you begin to see that these patterns are not personal flaws. They are simply reactions, habitual movements of the heart that arise from not understanding their origins. But now, guided by the Buddha's words, you are beginning to see them clearly. The Buddha's voice softens. He explains that by understanding craving and aversion, you are already loosening their hold. Seeing the roots of suffering is the beginning of freedom. And as the night deepens around you, he gently prepares you for the next truth, one that reveals not only why suffering arises, but how it can finally come to an end, like a fire going out when its fuel is gone. The Buddha's voice softens even further, becoming almost like a breeze, moving through the branches above. You feel its calmness settling into your chest, warming you from the inside out. Having uncovered the roots of suffering, the cravings that pull you forward, and the aversions that push you back, you now feel more grounded, more aware of the patterns shaping your inner world. The night around you has grown deeper, but not darker. Instead, it feels like a protective embrace, as though the world itself is listening with you. The Buddha closes his eyes for a moment, allowing the silence to stretch. It is not an empty silence, but a full one, rich with possibility. When he speaks again, there is a profound gentleness in his tone, the kind that makes you instinctively lean closer. He tells you that once you understand the cause of suffering, you can begin to imagine what freedom from it might feel like. A freedom so simple, so natural, that it has always been available, waiting patiently behind the noise of desire and fear. He describes this freedom as the extinguishing of a flame, not a harsh snuffing out, but a flame that naturally fades when the fuel feeding it is gone. Just as craving and aversion create the fires within you, letting go of these patterns allows the fires to settle, leaving behind warmth without burning. You can almost picture it. The mind as a quiet hearth at dawn, the embers soft and glowing, no longer consuming anything, simply resting in their own gentle warmth. The Buddha explains that the cessation of suffering does not mean the absence of life's challenges. Pain may still arise at times, illness, loss, disappointment, but suffering, the inner turmoil that twists around those experiences, begins to loosen. Without clinging to what you desire, without pushing away what you fear, moments become just moments. Feelings become just feelings. Thoughts become just thoughts. They come, they go, and you remain steady, like the earth beneath the Bodhi tree. You listen as he describes the peace that arises when the heart releases its grip. Imagine, he says, carrying a heavy stone for years without realizing it. You've grown so accustomed to the weight that it feels like part of you. But then, one day, someone gently invites you to set it down. At first, you hesitate, unsure of what might happen without it. Yet the moment you release it, something inside you opens. Relief pours in. Freedom flows through your limbs. You haven't changed the world around you. You've simply stopped carrying what you didn't need. This peace is not a distant dream. It is not reserved for saints or scholars or those who retreat from the world. It lives within the ordinary rhythms of your life, in the breath you take before reacting, in the space you create when you choose patience, in the moments you allow yourself to feel without judgment. The Buddha reminds you that awakening is woven into the fabric of each small choice, each moment of awareness, each act of compassion toward yourself. Your body relaxes even more as you hear this. Something inside you feels as though it is exhaling for the first time in a long while. The idea that suffering can end, not by force, but by release, fills you with a quiet kind of hope. You begin to notice, almost unconsciously, the subtle areas of tension in your shoulders, your jaw, your stomach. And with every breath, they soften. You imagine the fires of craving and aversion within you flickering lower, becoming less demanding, less consuming. The Buddha opens his eyes again, and in the moonlight, you see a soft glow reflected there. He speaks of nirvana, not as a mystical destination, but as a state of profound clarity and peace. A mind no longer shaken by every gust of emotion. A heart no longer imprisoned by desire or fear. A life lived in harmony with the truth of change, imperfection, and interdependence. Even the word itself, he says, means to cool, like a breeze easing the heat of a long summer day. You breathe in that image, feeling its coolness spread through your chest. With each inhale, the world feels more spacious. With each exhale, a little more of your burden seems to drift away. You begin to sense that this peace, this cooling of the inner fires, is not something you must chase. It arises naturally when you stop feeding what hurts you. The Buddha's voice flows onward, steady and calm, preparing to guide you further. Now that you have glimpsed the possibility of ending suffering, he says, it is time to learn how to walk that path, step by step, breath by breath. A path not of force or perfection, but of practice, wisdom, and gentle effort. And as the night deepens around the Bodhi tree, he begins to reveal the way forward, a map known as the Noble Eightfold Path, the living guide toward peace. The Buddha's presence feels even steadier now, as though the very ground beneath you hums with the quiet certainty of what comes next. You have followed him through the understanding of suffering and its causes, and you have touched the possibility of its end, a soft, cooling peace that begins within the heart. Now, with the night deep and calm, the Buddha's voice becomes a guiding lantern once more. He explains that knowing peace is possible is one thing, but walking toward it is another. And so he begins to reveal the path, the clear, compassionate way forward. He speaks of it as a road not carved in stone, but lived through your choices. A path that does not demand perfection, only sincerity. A path that welcomes the tired, the curious, the wounded, and the hopeful alike. This path, he says, is the Noble Eightfold Path, a gentle, practical guide for any human being seeking clarity in a world that so often feels tangled and uncertain. As he begins describing it, You imagine a wide path stretching out before you beneath the moonlight. It is neither steep nor harsh. Instead, it feels like a steady walk through a peaceful forest, where each step brings you deeper into calm. He explains that the path is composed of 8 elements, woven together like the spokes of a wheel, each one supporting the others, each one helping the mind come into balance. He starts with right view, the understanding you have already begun to cultivate, seeing life as it truly is, without illusions or distortions. It means recognizing suffering without fear and recognizing joy without clinging. It means seeing that everything changes and that peace comes from flowing with life rather than fighting it. As he speaks, you feel a sense of clarity spreading gently through your mind, as though someone has cleaned the smudges from a window you didn't realize was fogged. Then he speaks of right intention, the quiet decision to move through the world with kindness and goodwill. It is the intention to let go of harm, to cultivate compassion, and to release the urge to hold tightly to things that are not meant to remain. These intentions, he says, shape the tone of your life, just as the quality of your breath shapes your state of mind. Even a small shift toward gentleness can ripple outward in ways you may never fully see. As you listen, you feel your chest soften. The idea that peace begins with intention, not achievement, brings comfort. Anyone can cultivate gentleness. Anyone can choose compassion. Even the smallest effort matters. The Buddha moves on to speak of right speech. He describes words as seeds. Some grow into peace, others into harm. When words are spoken with honesty, kindness, and purpose, they settle gently into the hearts of others. But when they arise from anger or carelessness, they create ripples of suffering that spread far beyond the moment they were spoken. Hearing this, you recall times when harsh words lingered in your own memory, and times when kind words lifted you unexpectedly. You begin to understand why speech is such a powerful part of the path. From speech, he guides you into right action, the way you choose to behave in the world. Actions rooted in compassion and mindfulness become steps toward freedom. Actions rooted in harm or carelessness pull you back into suffering. The Buddha's words remind you that even small acts, a gentle gesture, a choice not to harm, a moment of patience, can shape the course of your day and the days of others in quiet but profound ways. Next, he speaks of right livelihood. This is not only the work you do, but the way your work affects the world. When your livelihood supports rather than harms, when it aligns with your values, it becomes a source of peace rather than conflict. You feel the truth of this deeply. The way you spend your days shapes the way you feel when night comes. The Buddha then guides you toward right effort, not harsh discipline, not rigid striving, but the gentle, steady cultivation of wholesome qualities. He describes the mind like a garden. With the right effort, you water seeds of calm and compassion and gently remove the weeds of anger, judgment, and fear. You do not force the garden to bloom. You simply care for it. Right mindfulness follows naturally. It is the practice of being awake to your experience, not lost in thought, not clinging to the past or the future, but resting in the present moment. You imagine mindfulness as a lantern you carry with you, illuminating each step, each breath, each feeling. It brings warmth, clarity, and space. Finally, he speaks of right concentration, the deep stillness cultivated through meditation. This stillness is not the absence of thought, but the settling of the mind into a calm, clear lake. You sense how this stillness can hold all things without being disturbed. As the Buddha finishes describing the Eightfold Path, the night around you feels different, wider, gentler, more spacious. You sense the path not as something distant, but as something already unfolding inside you. And with this new understanding, the Buddha prepares to guide you deeper into the first limb of the path, beginning with the clarity of right view and the simple beauty of seeing life as it truly is. The Buddha's words settle gently into your awareness, like ripples spreading across a still pond. You feel the weight of the Eightfold Path resting softly in your mind, not as a list or a rule, but as a living, breathing guide. And as the night stretches deeper, the Buddha's calm presence draws your focus inward once again. He begins to speak with a tone that feels both grounding and uplifting, as though he is inviting you to take your very first step onto the path itself. He guides your attention to the beginning of this journey. Right view, not a rigid belief, not a doctrine to memorize, but a way of seeing that clears the fog from your eyes and allows you to meet the world with honesty and compassion. He describes right view as the foundation upon which all other steps rest. If the mind is clouded, every choice becomes heavy. But if the mind sees clearly, even the smallest decisions flow naturally toward peace. You feel his words settle into your chest, and he begins to paint a picture for you. Imagine, he says, waking up in a room filled with smoke. You cannot see the walls, the floor, or the doorway. Every step feels uncertain. You move cautiously, fearing you might stumble. Your breath tightens as you search for something solid to guide you. This is how the mind moves when it is clouded by confusion. When you cling to illusions, fears, or beliefs that no longer serve you. Every moment feels heavier because you are trying to navigate without clarity. But then imagine a window opening. Fresh air sweeps in. The smoke begins to thin. Slowly, shapes emerge. The outline of a table, the curve of a chair, the soft light of a doorway. Nothing in the room has changed except your ability to see it. And in that clarity, your breath deepens, your steps become steadier, and you begin to move with confidence rather than fear. This, the Buddha says, is the nature of right view. The gentle clearing that allows life to make sense again. He explains that right view begins by recognizing the truth of cause and effect. Every thought, every word, every action plants a seed. Some seeds grow into peace, others into suffering. And when you understand this deeply, not just with your mind, but with your heart, you start choosing more wisely. Not out of fear, but out of understanding. You begin to see that kindness brings ease to both yourself and others. That patience dissolves conflict. That anger, when nurtured, burns only you. Seeing these patterns clearly is the essence of right view. He invites you to reflect on your own experiences, moments when you acted out of confusion or fear, and how they created difficulty. moments when you acted from clarity or compassion, and how they brought peace. You realize how often your suffering arose not from the world itself, but from the way you interpreted it. Stories your mind created, expectations you held too tightly, beliefs you clung to without questioning. As this realization settles into you, something loosens inside your chest, as though a tight knot has begun to unravel. The Buddha continues, describing how perception shapes reality. When the mind is clouded, even small challenges feel overwhelming. A single comment from someone can be twisted into an insult. A moment of uncertainty can turn into anxiety. But when the mind sees clearly, the same events appear differently. A harsh word becomes an expression of someone else's pain. A setback becomes an opportunity to learn. A moment of confusion becomes a chance to pause and breathe. Clarity transforms the same world into a gentler place. He speaks of illusions, not in a mystical sense, but in the patterns the mind creates when it doesn't understand. The illusion that you are separate from others. The illusion that your worth depends on success or approval. The illusion that your thoughts define you. These illusions, the Buddha says, are like shadows cast by a flickering lamp. They appear real until you bring steady light to them. Right view is that light. You feel yourself sinking deeper into calm as he speaks. The Bodhi tree rustles softly above, as if agreeing with every word. The moon casts a pale glow across the clearing, illuminating the Buddha's serene expression. In this quiet space, clarity feels attainable, not something distant or reserved for sages, but something growing naturally within you as you listen. The Buddha explains that right view does not ask you to be perfect. It simply asks you to remain open, to question, to observe, to let go of assumptions that cause harm. It is the willingness to see things as they are, not as your fears paint them. And as this understanding settles, you begin to sense a gentle shift in the air, as though you have stepped onto the first stone of a long but peaceful path. Then the Buddha's voice softens, guiding you into the next truth that naturally follows. If right view is the light that reveals the path, then the next step is choosing the direction in which you walk. With clarity blooming in your heart, he prepares to teach you about intention, the quiet force that shapes every choice, every word, and every moment of your life. The Buddha's voice settles into a softer rhythm, like a breeze moving through the tall grass. After guiding you through the clarity of right view, he allows a moment of quiet to stretch between you, an invitation to let the understanding settle. The night feels spacious, almost luminous, as though the moon itself leans closer to listen. And within this stillness, the Buddha begins to speak again, his tone warm and steady, inviting you deeper into the next step of the path. He explains that clarity is only the beginning. Once you see life as it truly is, changing, interconnected, shaped by cause and effect, your next step is to choose how you wish to move through it. This choice, he says, is the heart of right intention. Intention is the quiet flame beneath every action you take, the force that shapes your thoughts, your words, and the path your life follows. Without intention, even a clear view can lose direction. But with intention, clarity becomes purpose. The Buddha describes intention as the seed of every moment. Imagine holding a seed in your hand. Though it appears small and simple, what it becomes depends entirely on how you plant it. A seed of anger grows into conflict. A seed of fear grows into avoidance. A seed of longing grows into restless desire. But a seed of compassion, a seed of peace, grows into a life that nourishes both yourself and others. Right intention is the choice to plant seeds that lead toward peace rather than suffering. He speaks first about the intention of kindness. This is not a dramatic or grand gesture, but a quiet, steady leaning of the heart toward goodwill. It begins with yourself, softening the harsh judgments, loosening the grip of perfection, allowing space for your own humanness. When you treat yourself with kindness, the Buddha explains, kindness naturally extends outward. It shapes your relationships, your decisions, and even the way you interpret the world. You start to see not only your own pain, but the pain of others, and instead of reacting with frustration or blame, you respond with understanding. As you listen, you recall moments when someone's gentle presence changed your entire day. A smile offered at the right time, a soft word when you expected criticism. Kindness alters the atmosphere of a moment, like light entering a dim room. And with this memory, you feel a small warmth blooming in your chest, as if your heart recognizes this intention as something familiar, something it has always longed to carry. Then the Buddha speaks of the intention of compassion, a deeper form of kindness. Compassion sees suffering clearly and wishes for its release, not only for yourself, but for all beings. It is the intention to lighten the burdens you encounter when you can, and to refrain from adding new ones. Compassion does not demand that you fix everything. It asks only that you remain open, that you acknowledge the shared experience of difficulty, that you allow your heart to soften rather than harden. He describes compassion like a river, quiet but steady, flowing naturally toward wherever relief is needed. When you cultivate compassion, you become like that river. You nourish the lives around you without effort, simply through the way you move, the way you speak, the way you choose to show up in the world. The Buddha then turns to the third intention, the intention of letting go. This is the intention that frees the mind from the grip of craving, fear, and clinging. Letting go does not mean giving up your dreams or abandoning what you care about. Instead, it means loosening the tightness around them. It means allowing life to unfold without trying to force it into your expectations. When you let go, you create space for peace to arise, space for clarity, space for joy, space for balance. He describes letting go as releasing a rope you've been unknowingly pulling against. The moment you release it, the tension dissolves. The struggle stops. You feel lighter, freer, more present. And in that freedom, you begin to understand how much of your suffering came not from life itself, but from the way you resisted its natural flow. As he speaks, you feel your breath deepen once more. You sense how intention, quiet, invisible, often overlooked, has shaped so many moments of your life. You begin to notice subtle intentions stirring now, the desire for calm, the openness to understanding, the curiosity about peace. These intentions feel like gentle currents carrying you forward. The Buddha assures you that right intention is not a demand for perfection. It is a practice, a gentle redirecting of the heart whenever it strays. Even when you fall into old patterns of fear, anger, or clinging, the moment you remember your intention, you return to the path. In this way, intention becomes a compass, always guiding you back toward peace. And as the night air grows cooler and the leaves above whisper softly, the Buddha's voice shifts with quiet purpose. He prepares to guide you from the realm of thought into the realm of action, showing how intention naturally manifests through the way you speak and interact with the world. With clarity in your mind and peace growing in your heart, he begins to speak about the next step, how to bring your intentions to life through the power of right speech. The Buddha lets the stillness linger for a moment, allowing the understanding of intention to sink gently into your mind. Around you, the night seems to deepen in warmth, as if the very air recognizes the shift within you. With clarity settling in your thoughts and peaceful intention blooming in your heart, the Buddha's voice rises once more, soft, steady, and grounded like the earth beneath the Bodhi tree. He begins to guide you toward the next step on the path, a step that shapes every relationship, every moment of connection, every ripple you send into the world. He speaks of right speech, the practice of using words as tools for peace rather than harm. Words, he explains, are far more powerful than most people realize. They are like seeds scattered across the landscape of life. A harsh word can take root in someone's heart for years. A lie can grow vines of confusion that twist through many lives. But gentle words, words spoken with care, can plant forests of healing, trust, and understanding. You listen as he describes how speech carries intention outward. Whatever you hold in your heart becomes visible through your voice. When your intentions are clouded by anger or fear, your words often mirror that. But when your intentions are shaped by kindness and clarity, your speech becomes a source of comfort for yourself and others. In this way, right speech is not just a practice. It is the natural expression of a peaceful mind. The Buddha begins with the simplest guidance: refrain from lying. Even small untruths, he says, create cracks in the foundation of trust. Lies ripple through the world, causing confusion, misunderstanding, and unnecessary suffering. But when you speak truthfully, with care, not cruelty, you help create stability. You become someone others feel safe around, someone whose words can be trusted. He continues, speaking of avoiding harsh speech. Words spoken in anger, even when momentarily satisfying, leave wounds that linger long after the moment has passed. Harsh speech is like throwing a burning stick. It may leave your hand quickly, but its flame continues to hurt whomever it touches. Kindness, on the other hand, cools the heat of conflict. When you choose gentle words, you create a space where others can breathe, soften, and respond with calm rather than pain. You recall times when someone's voice cut through you sharply, their words leaving marks long after they were spoken. Then you recall moments when someone spoke gently, patiently, easing a tension you didn't know how to release. You recognize the truth of the Buddha's teaching. Speech is never just sound. It is a force, shaping the emotional landscape around you. Next, he speaks of avoiding gossip, words spoken behind someone's back, meant to entertain or bond at the expense of another. Gossip may feel light in the moment, even amusing, but its effects are heavy. It fractures relationships, spreads misunderstanding, and nurtures distrust. The Buddha describes gossip as scattering thorns along a path you must later walk. Every thorn you place becomes one you, too, may step on. He then speaks gently of idle chatter, words without purpose, spoken simply to fill silence. While not harmful in themselves, they pull the mind away from clarity and intention. A mind that seeks peace learns to appreciate silence, to choose words thoughtfully, to speak when something meaningful or kind can be said. Silence, the Buddha reminds you, is often the most compassionate response. As he guides you through these reflections, you begin to recognize how right speech is not merely avoiding harm. It is actively cultivating goodness. When you speak with clarity, kindness, and sincerity, your words become medicine. They soothe tension, build bridges, restore trust, and deepen connection. The Buddha offers a simple image. Imagine your words as drops of water falling into a still pond. Each drop creates ripples. Some ripples disturb the surface, sending waves outward, but others create patterns of peace, gentle circles that expand without causing harm. Your words, he says, are the ripples you release into the world. Each one matters. You feel your breath deepen as you absorb his teaching. You begin to notice how often words arise quickly, without thought, how easily emotion can shape tone, how mindlessly habits can guide conversations. But here, under the Bodhi tree, you sense the possibility of speaking differently, slowly, intentionally, with awareness. The Buddha's voice grows warm again, inviting you to imagine how your life might feel if your words consistently aligned with your heart's best intentions. Conversations would feel lighter. Relationships would feel safer. Conflicts would lose their sharpness. You would become a source of calm simply through the way you speak. As the night air carries the scent of lotus blossoms, the Buddha begins to guide your awareness toward the natural continuation of right speech. Speech shapes the atmosphere around you, but the next step shows how your actions shape the world itself. With the strength of clarity and the softness of compassion, he prepares to lead you into the realm of action. The choices you make with your body, your time, and your presence in the world. The Buddha lets the night grow still again after speaking of the power of words. You feel the quiet settling around you like a warm blanket, the air soft with the scent of earth and the faint sweetness of nearby blossoms. The moon hangs steady above the Bodhi tree, casting a pale glow over the clearing. In this silence, you sense the gentle shift as the Buddha prepares to guide you deeper, not just into how you speak, but into how you live, how you move through the world with your hands, your choices, and your presence. When he finally speaks, his voice has a grounded steadiness, like footsteps on firm soil. He explains that while right speech shapes the world through sound, right action shapes it through behavior. Every gesture, every choice, every movement of your body leaves an imprint on the world around you. And just as a single drop of water can disturb a calm pond, Even small actions ripple outward, touching lives in ways you may never fully see. The Buddha begins with the most essential principle: to live without causing harm. This does not mean avoiding all mistakes, nor does it mean shielding yourself from necessary challenges. Instead, it means carrying awareness into every choice, asking yourself whether your actions bring ease or suffering, whether they build compassion or damage, whether they align with the intentions you so carefully cultivate. When you act with this awareness, your life naturally becomes gentler, more peaceful, more in harmony with the world. He speaks first about non-harming, known as ahimsa, the intention not to injure or destroy. This principle is not limited to physical harm. It extends to the subtle ways you treat others and yourself. Harsh gestures, unkind habits, careless decisions that ignore the well-being of others, these too create wounds. But acts of kindness, even the smallest ones, soften the world. They make it safer. They make it warmer. As he speaks, memories rise within you. Moments when someone's gentle action made you feel seen, valued, or protected. A hand held out at the right time. A small act of help when you were overwhelmed. A door held open when you carried something heavy. These simple gestures carried a power far greater than their effort, and you feel yourself understanding deeply that every day offers opportunities for small kindnesses, opportunities to be the person who lightens someone else's burden, even subtly. Next, the Buddha speaks of honesty, not just in words, but in action. To act honestly is to live without theft, not only physical theft, but taking anything that is not freely given. This includes taking credit for someone else's work, using another's time carelessly, or taking advantage of someone's trust. He reminds you that every time you choose honesty, you reinforce a sense of integrity within yourself. You feel more grounded, more aligned, more whole. He then guides you gently toward the principle of respect. Respect for your own body, respect for the bodies of others, and respect for the boundaries that keep relationships healthy. The Buddha explains that when you act with respect, you honor the dignity of life itself. You become someone who chooses care over selfishness, responsibility over impulse. Respect creates safety where fear once lived, trust where doubt once grew. As you listen, the world around you feels different, as though the trees themselves lean closer to absorb these teachings. You begin to notice your own body, how it rests, how it breathes, how it holds both tension and calm. You feel the importance of treating yourself as gently as you treat others. Right action includes the way you feed your body, the way you rest, the way you allow yourself to heal. You understand that non-harming includes releasing the self-criticism that aches inside your chest, offering yourself the same patience you would offer a friend. The Buddha's voice flows like calm river water, describing how every action becomes a step on your path. When your hands move with kindness, when your choices arise from clarity, when your presence brings comfort rather than fear, you become a living expression of peace. You no longer act from impulse alone. You move deliberately, thoughtfully, with awareness of the bigger tapestry your life is weaving in the world. He reminds you that right action is not about perfection. You will make mistakes. You will have moments of impatience or carelessness. But each time you remember your intention and choose differently, you return to the path. The journey is not linear. It is a practice, a gentle reorientation toward compassion, again and again. As the Buddha speaks, a cool breeze drifts through the branches above, scattering a few leaves across the ground. They twist lightly in the moonlight, coming to rest at your feet. The Buddha glances toward them and smiles softly, as if to remind you that every action, like these falling leaves, eventually settles. What matters is the care you place into each step along the way. Then, with the same calm flow of the river, the Buddha's guidance begins to shift. He explains that your actions shape the world around you, but so too does the way you choose to sustain yourself within it. The next part of the path invites you to look at the work you do, the energy you exchange with others, and how your livelihood becomes a reflection of the values you cultivate. And with that gentle invitation, he begins to lead you toward the next teaching, the wisdom of right livelihood. The Buddha's teachings settle gently in your mind as he finishes speaking about right action. The clearing around you feels even calmer now, as if the earth itself has absorbed the wisdom and begun to radiate it back through the soil. You breathe deeply, feeling a quiet steadiness form within you. And just as the night drifts smoothly into its next moment, the Buddha's voice rises again, warm, grounded, and full of compassionate clarity. He begins guiding you into the next step of the path, one that shapes not only your choices, but the entire direction of your life. He speaks of right livelihood, the practice of choosing work that aligns with peace rather than harm. Your livelihood, he says, is more than the tasks you perform each day. It is the energy you send into the world, the intentions you nurture, and the impact your actions have on others. The Buddha explains that the work you choose becomes the rhythm of your days, the structure of your efforts, and the atmosphere that colors much of your life. When your livelihood is rooted in compassion and clarity, your days naturally become lighter, your heart steadier, your mind clearer. You listen, imagining your life as a great river flowing forward. Your livelihood is the direction in which that river moves, the place you pour your time, your effort, your skills, and your presence. If the river flows toward harm, the current becomes turbulent, pulling you into stress and disconnection. But if it flows toward peace, the water becomes clear and steady, nourishing everything along its banks. The Buddha explains that right livelihood begins with a simple question. Does my work bring harm, or does it bring benefit? Not just to yourself, but to others, to your community, to the world, and to your own inner well-being. He describes harmful livelihoods as those that bring suffering to others, directly or indirectly. Work driven by exploitation, deception, or violence weighs heavily on the heart. Even if the mind tries to ignore it, the body feels the tension. The breath becomes shallow. The nights feel restless. The Buddha reminds you that no material reward is worth the cost of harming yourself or others through your work. Then he speaks of livelihoods that lift the world gently. These may not always look dramatic or impressive, but they nourish instead of harm. Work that supports life, eases suffering, creates safety, or brings understanding becomes a quiet form of service. Even the simplest jobs, cleaning, caring, cooking, building, can become expressions of compassion when done with awareness. The Buddha explains that what matters is not the title of your work, but the intention you bring to it and the effect it has on the world. You feel a soft opening in your chest as you think about this. Perhaps you have worked in ways that drained you, or stayed in situations that felt misaligned with your heart. Perhaps you have wondered whether your efforts matter. The Buddha's words bring comfort. Every job, every role, every form of labor can become part of the path when rooted in mindfulness and care. He invites you to consider another aspect of right livelihood. Does my work support my inner peace? Even if your work does not harm others, if it endlessly harms you, your well-being, your values, your sense of purpose, it may still be misaligned. The Buddha encourages you to look gently at the demands placed upon you, the way your work shapes your days, and whether it allows you space to rest, breathe, and live with integrity. Peaceful work nourishes rather than drains. It supports life instead of consuming it. The night breeze stirs the leaves overhead, creating a soft whisper that feels like nature agreeing with the teaching. You notice your own breath moving more easily now, your body relaxing into the idea that your livelihood can be a form of compassion, not only for others, but for yourself. The Buddha continues, describing how work becomes meaningful when aligned with your intention to live without harm. It does not mean you must abandon all ambition or avoid challenges. Instead, it means approaching your livelihood with awareness, recognizing how your effort can support life, ease suffering, and create clarity. Even in difficult moments, when work feels heavy or tiring, the Buddha reminds you that mindfulness can transform the experience. A mindful worker becomes calm in chaos, deliberate in confusion, steady in uncertainty. You imagine yourself carrying this teaching into your daily life, speaking honestly, acting with compassion, choosing wisely the tasks you undertake and the energy you give. You see how this could reshape not only your outer world, but the landscape within your mind. Your livelihood becomes not a burden, but a practice, a way of living your values fully. As the Buddha's voice continues, the clearing feels brighter, as if the moon has grown fuller in response to the teaching. You sense that you are being prepared for the next step, one that weaves effort into purpose. Because once you understand how to choose work aligned with peace, the question becomes how to sustain that peace, how to nourish your intentions every day, even when life becomes demanding or difficult. The Buddha begins to guide you toward this next teaching, speaking softly about the energy that fuels your journey, the steadiness of heart that keeps you walking the path, and the gentle discipline that helps peace grow. He is ready to lead you into the next chapter, the wisdom of right effort. The Buddha's teachings on livelihood settle softly within you, leaving a calm awareness of how your daily work can either nourish or drain your spirit. The night around you seems to breathe with you, slow, steady, effortless. And into that quiet rhythm, the Buddha's voice rises again, warm and patient, as though he is inviting you to look inward with even greater tenderness. He explains that once you choose a livelihood aligned with peace, the next step is learning how to sustain that peace. This is the heart of right effort, a practice not of strain or force, but of gentle discipline. It is the art of caring for your inner world with the same compassion you would offer a fragile flower or a small flame in the wind. Too little care, and the flame fades. Too much force, and the flower is crushed. Right effort is the balance in between. The Buddha describes the human mind like a garden. Within it grow seeds of kindness, patience, clarity, and peace, but also seeds of anger, fear, and restlessness. Whatever you water will grow. And so, right effort is the choice to nourish what is wholesome and gently weaken what is harmful, not through harshness or repression, but through mindful attention. He speaks first of preventing unwholesome states from arising. This does not mean guarding yourself rigidly from every discomfort. Instead, it means recognizing the conditions that stir confusion or pain and stepping back with awareness. If you know a certain thought leads you to worry, you learn not to feed it. If a certain habit stirs irritation, you pause before acting. In this way, you protect your peace the way a gardener protects tender shoots from harsh weather. Then he explains the second aspect, letting go of unwholesome states that have already arisen. Sometimes, anger appears suddenly, like a spark. Sometimes, restlessness creeps in slowly, like vines spreading along a wall. Right effort invites you not to judge these states, but to understand them. When you see them clearly, without fueling them, they begin to loosen their hold. The Buddha reminds you that letting go is not forceful. It is the gentle release of something you no longer need to carry. Next, he describes the effort to cultivate wholesome states, kindness, compassion, patience, and clarity. These qualities grow naturally when nourished with presence and care. A moment of gratitude, a breath taken intentionally, a small act of generosity. These are the seeds of peace, and as you water them, they begin to shape your life in quiet, steady ways. Finally, he speaks of sustaining these wholesome states, protecting them like a flame cupped in your hands. This does not mean clinging to them in fear of losing them. Instead, it means valuing them enough to keep returning to them whenever you drift. Peace is not a single moment. It is a practice of returning again and again to what steadies you. You listen as the Buddha explains that right effort is often misunderstood. Many think it means pushing harder, striving relentlessly, forcing the mind into calm. But true effort is like tuning a stringed instrument. If the string is too tight, it snaps. If it is too loose, it makes no sound. But when tuned with care, it produces beautiful music. He invites you to imagine holding a bow as you gently draw an arrow back. To create accuracy, the effort cannot be too forceful nor too weak. The right balance creates both strength and precision. In the same way, your inner effort must be balanced, not driven by pressure, not abandoned to laziness, but guided by steady, compassionate intention. As he speaks, you notice your own breath becoming smoother, your shoulders relaxing, your mind settling into a gentle clarity. You realize that much of your struggle in life has come not from what you experience, but from how tightly you grip it, or how quickly you run from it. But here, under the Bodhi tree, you feel the possibility of a new way, a path of calm persistence, where effort becomes a quiet support rather than a burden. The Buddha continues, explaining that right effort is deeply intertwined with mindfulness. Effort without awareness becomes blind struggle. Awareness without effort becomes passive drifting. But together, they create a balanced inner strength, a strength that doesn't exhaust you, but upholds you. You feel something inside you shift at this realization. A sense of spaciousness grows, as if the mind has more room to breathe. You begin to understand why the Buddha teaches effort before mindfulness, because effort clears the path, softens the soil, and prepares the heart to be fully awake. The night deepens around you, but it no longer feels dark. The moon hangs like a quiet companion, and the leaves whisper softly overhead, as if repeating the Buddha's teaching in their own subtle way. You sense the path forming more clearly beneath your feet, step by gentle step. And as the Buddha's voice softens, he guides you naturally toward the next teaching, one that will show you how to bring full attention to each moment, how to awaken completely to your life as it unfolds. With the foundation of gentle effort laid before you, he begins to lead you into the profound practice of right mindfulness. The Buddha allows another wave of quiet to settle over the clearing, giving space for the understanding of right effort to gently root itself within you. The night feels calmer now, as if your breath and the rhythm of the earth have fallen into perfect harmony. Fireflies drift lazily through the air, their soft glow flickering in and out like tiny lanterns guiding the way forward. And when the Buddha begins to speak again, his voice feels even more soothing, steady, grounded, and deeply present. He tells you that with effort balanced and gentle, the mind becomes ready for something deeper. Right mindfulness, the art of truly being here, not half in the past, not lost in the future, not tangled in thoughts, but resting softly in the richness of this very moment. The Buddha explains that mindfulness is the foundation of all inner peace. Without it, even the best intentions are swept away by habit and distraction. But with mindfulness, each moment becomes a place of clarity, a fresh beginning, a space for wisdom to arise. He invites you to bring your attention to your breath, not to change it, not to force it, but to simply notice it. The breath enters, the breath leaves, a simple rhythm that has been with you every moment of your life, asking for nothing, offering everything. You notice the coolness of the inhale, the warmth of the exhale. You feel the gentle expansion of your chest, the soft settling of your shoulders. In this noticing, you become more present, rooted, aware, alive. The Buddha explains that mindfulness begins with the body. The body is always here, always in the present moment, even when your thoughts wander far away. By returning attention to your body, your breath, your posture, the sensations beneath your skin, you anchor yourself to now. He describes mindfulness of the body as a way to come home to yourself, to reconnect with the quiet truth that you are here, breathing, living. As he speaks, you become aware of the feeling of the ground beneath you, the gentle weight of your body, the cool air brushing your arms. These sensations are subtle, yet they draw you deeper into the moment. You realize how rarely you allow yourself to simply feel without judgment, without rushing, without needing anything to be different. The Buddha continues, guiding you toward mindfulness of feelings. He explains that emotions arise like waves, some soft and soothing, others powerful or overwhelming, but all are temporary. Mindfulness allows you to see them clearly without being swept away. When joy arises, you acknowledge it with presence. When sorrow appears, you hold it gently. When restlessness comes, you notice its texture, its movement, its impermanence. Feelings lose their power to control you when you observe them with curiosity rather than fear. He describes mindfulness as watching the sky. Thoughts and emotions are the clouds, shifting, changing, passing across your awareness. Some clouds are bright and gentle, others heavy and dark, but none of them alter the sky itself. The sky remains spacious, open, unaffected. Your true awareness, the Buddha explains, is like that sky, vast and steady, capable of holding everything without being overwhelmed. You feel something inside you soften at this image. Instead of resisting your experiences or clinging to them, you begin to sense the possibility of simply witnessing them, allowing them to arise, allowing them to pass. You realize how much suffering has come from battling your inner world rather than observing it. The Buddha's voice flows gently into the next aspect, mindfulness of the mind itself. Thoughts appear like sparks, quick, unpredictable, often uninvited. Most of the time, you chase them without realizing it, but mindfulness allows you to step back and watch your thoughts as if watching a stream. You see them form, move, dissolve. Some thoughts are kind, some are harsh, some are old echoes, some are new imaginings, but none of them define you. They are phenomena moving through awareness, not the essence of who you are. The night around you feels quieter now, as though even the breeze is listening. You notice your mind becoming clearer, not because thoughts have stopped, but because you are no longer tangled in them. You are watching them from a place of stillness. The Buddha then speaks of mindfulness of reality, the understanding that everything you experience arises from conditions, changes with time, and eventually passes. Seeing this clearly brings a tenderness to your life. You begin to appreciate each breath, each moment, each connection, knowing nothing stays the same forever. This awareness does not create sadness. It creates presence, gratitude, openness. As he speaks, you sense how mindfulness supports every step of the path. Without it, effort becomes strain. Speech becomes careless. Action becomes reactive. But with it, each step becomes deliberate, compassionate, grounded. Your breath deepens. Your awareness widens. And something inside you settles with a quiet certainty. The Buddha's tone shifts gently, preparing you for what comes next. Mindfulness opens the door to something even deeper, a stillness that gathers the wandering mind, a calm concentration that allows wisdom to blossom naturally. With the foundation of presence now steady beneath you, the Buddha begins to guide you toward the next step on the path. Right concentration, the art of resting the mind fully and peacefully in one place. The Buddha's words on mindfulness linger within you, like a gentle glow spreading across the heart. Your awareness feels more spacious now, more settled, as though the world has softened around the edges. You sit beneath the Bodhi tree, fully present, feeling the quiet pulse of the night as naturally as your own breath. And as this clarity deepens, the Buddha's voice begins again, calm, soothing, guiding you into the next step of the path with the same steady compassion that has carried you this far. He explains that once mindfulness steadies the mind, it becomes possible to enter a deeper, more tranquil state. This is right concentration, the art of gathering the wandering mind and resting it gently in one place, like a bird folding its wings after a long flight. Concentration, he says, is not a forceful narrowing, nor a rigid command. It is a returning, a soft, continual settling into calm. The Buddha invites you to imagine a still lake at dawn. When the wind is quiet, the water becomes so smooth that it reflects the world perfectly, the sky, the trees, even the faint glow of the rising sun. But if the water is stirred by constant movement, the reflections break, distort, and scatter. The mind behaves the same way. When pulled by desires, fears, memories, and worries, it becomes restless and cloudy. But when allowed to settle with steady awareness, it becomes clear, reflective, and peaceful. You take a slow breath, and the Buddha guides your attention inward. He encourages you to rest your awareness gently on the breath, not gripping it, not controlling it, simply noticing. The inhale, the exhale, the natural pause in between. With each cycle of breath, you sense the mind gathering itself, like petals folding inward at night. He explains that right concentration unfolds gradually, with patience rather than pressure. It begins by choosing a single point of focus, often the breath, but it could be a sound, a sensation, or even a simple phrase that steadies the heart. As you rest your awareness there, thoughts will still arise, memories will flicker, emotions will drift through like clouds, but rather than chasing them, you simply return to the breath, again and again, with kindness. This returning is the essence of concentration. Not perfection, not silence, not the absence of thought, but the gentle commitment to come back. The Buddha describes the meditative absorptions, the jhanas, as states where the mind becomes deeply calm and unified. In these states, the mind is no longer scattered. Joy arises naturally, like sunlight warming the skin. A quiet happiness spreads through the body, not dependent on anything outside. Eventually, even that joy softens into a profound peace, a stillness so complete that the mind feels like a vast sky, untroubled and open. He reminds you that these states are not goals to chase. They are natural outcomes of patience, presence, and kindness toward yourself. If you grasp for them, they slip away. But if you cultivate your mind gently, they arise like blossoms in spring, opening of their own accord. As you listen, you begin to sense the edges of your mind softening. Thoughts lose some of their urgency. The breath feels smoother, the body lighter. The night around you seems to hum with stillness, as though all of nature has entered meditation alongside you. The trees unmoving, the breeze resting, the sky deep and silent. The Buddha explains that concentration is not separate from life. A concentrated mind walks more calmly, listens more deeply, and responds more wisely. It becomes less reactive, less tangled in impulses, less easily shaken. Imagine holding a cup filled to the brim. If your hand trembles even slightly, the water spills. But if your hand is steady, the water remains still. Concentration steadies the mind in this way, making room for wisdom and compassion to guide your actions. He guides you to notice the subtle calm now forming within you. The breath feels anchored. The body feels supported. The mind feels clearer, like a lake returning to stillness after waves fade. This clarity, he explains, is the foundation for seeing the deeper patterns within the mind, especially the obstacles that prevent peace. These obstacles are known as the 5 hindrances: desire, ill will, restlessness, sloth, and doubt. They arise naturally in all minds, pulling attention away from peace and scattering the clarity you cultivate. But with concentration, you can recognize them without becoming lost in them. You can meet them with understanding, compassion, and patience. The Buddha's voice grows soft, almost like a whisper, carried on the wind. He prepares to guide you into this next teaching, not to push away the obstacles within your mind, but to recognize them gently and transform your relationship with them. With your mind now calm and anchored, he begins to lead you toward an honest exploration of the hindrances that cloud the heart, beginning with a deep understanding of the inner obstacles themselves. The calm created through right concentration settles over you like a gentle veil, softening the edges of your thoughts. You feel the mind resting more naturally now, no longer chasing every flicker of feeling or memory. In this quiet space, the Buddha's voice rises again, clear, warm, steady, guiding you even deeper into the landscape of your inner world. He explains that once the mind begins to settle, it becomes possible to see with honesty the subtle forces that disturb that peace. These forces are known as the 5 hindrances, ancient companions of every human being, appearing not as enemies, but as teachers, pointing toward deeper understanding. He begins with desire, the first hindrance. Desire arises when the mind reaches for something, an experience, a feeling, an object, believing it will complete or satisfy you. It is like a hand forever stretching outward, convinced that fulfillment lies just beyond its fingertips. But the Buddha explains that desire never truly rests, even when you give it what it wants. You have felt this yourself. The temporary pleasure of obtaining something new, followed by the quiet return of wanting more. Desire is not wrong. It is part of being human. But when it grows clingy or insistent, it clouds the mind, making it restless and unable to settle. The Buddha encourages you to meet desire with patience, to acknowledge it without feeding it, to feel its pull, without letting it guide your steps. Next, he speaks of ill will, the second hindrance. Ill will appears as irritation, anger, resentment, or even subtle aversion, a shrinking away from discomfort. It burns hot or cold, depending on the moment. When the mind is caught in ill will, even small things feel magnified. A harsh word echoes for hours. A minor inconvenience turns into a storm. But beneath every expression of ill will lies a wound, a place that hurts, a place seeking protection. The Buddha invites you to look at ill will not with shame, but with compassion, like looking at a frightened animal reacting out of fear. When you soften around it, ill will begins to dissolve. Then he speaks of sloth and torpor, often described together. This hindrance is not simple tiredness, but a heavy fog of the mind, a dullness that makes concentration feel impossible. It can appear as sinking lethargy, emotional numbness, or the quiet urge to withdraw from experience. The Buddha explains that sloth arises when the mind becomes unbalanced, either overwhelmed by difficulty or deprived of inspiration. Its antidote is not harsh discipline, but gentle activation, straightening the posture, deepening the breath, or bringing attention to something uplifting. Just as a fire needs air to strengthen its flame, the mind needs energy to overcome sloth. The fourth hindrance is restlessness and worry, a familiar companion to many. Restlessness scatters the mind like leaves blown by the wind. Thoughts dart from one concern to another, replaying conversations, imagining outcomes, analyzing problems. Even in quiet moments, the mind flits about, unable to land. Worry circles around fears of the future, while restlessness chases distraction after distraction. The Buddha describes this hindrance as a monkey swinging from branch to branch, energetic but unfocused. He teaches that the antidote lies in grounding the body, slowing the breath, and offering the mind the reassurance it seeks. When you remind yourself that you are safe in this moment, restlessness loosens its grip. Finally, he speaks of doubt, the most subtle of the hindrances. Doubt arises not only as uncertainty about choices or beliefs, but as uncertainty about yourself, your own capacity, your worth, your ability to walk the path. It whispers that you cannot change, that peace is not for you, that you will fail before you begin. Doubt can freeze the heart, making every step feel heavy. But the Buddha describes doubt as a cloud passing across the sky, real in the moment, yet temporary. He encourages you to meet doubt with curiosity, to observe it rather than believe it, to understand that doubt is simply a thought, not a truth. As you listen, you begin to recognize the presence of these hindrances in your own life, not with judgment, but with understanding. You remember moments of longing that pulled you outward, moments of anger that tightened your chest, moments of lethargy that made the world feel gray, moments of worry that tangled your breath, moments of doubt that dimmed your confidence. The Buddha's teaching helps you see these not as personal failures, but as universal experiences shared by every living being. They are part of the human journey, part of the landscape each person must navigate with awareness and compassion. The clearing around you feels strangely brighter now, as if the honesty of this exploration has cleared the air. You sense that understanding these hindrances is the first step toward freeing yourself from them. And as the Buddha's voice softens, he begins guiding you naturally toward the next teaching, the gentle art of working with these obstacles, dissolving their power and transforming them into stepping stones on the path to peace. The Buddha's voice softens as he finishes describing the 5 hindrances, letting the truth of them settle gently into your awareness. The night around you feels wide and open, as though the world itself is exhaling. You sense, for the first time, that these inner obstacles are not walls meant to trap you, but signposts pointing toward the parts of yourself that long for understanding. And as your breath deepens, the Buddha begins to guide you into the next step, how to work gently with these restless forces rather than be ruled by them. He starts with desire, the pull that convinces you happiness lies somewhere else, that something outside yourself must be obtained before you can rest. Desire can be subtle or overwhelming. The urge to check something one more time, the craving for approval, the longing for comfort, or the grasping for a feeling that once brought joy. The Buddha reminds you that desire is not your enemy. It is simply the mind reaching for relief. But when desire grows insistent, it becomes like a hand tugging at your sleeve, constantly pulling you away from the present moment. He invites you to picture desire as a flame. When you feed it, by chasing every impulse, indulging every craving, it grows larger, hotter, and more demanding. But when you observe it quietly, without reacting, the flame begins to soften. It flickers, then steadies, then eases. You do not extinguish desire through force. You calm it through understanding. When you sit with the sensation of wanting without immediately acting on it, the wanting loses its urgency. It becomes just another feeling, temporary, passing, neither good nor bad. The Buddha encourages you to explore this gently. When desire arises, ask yourself, what am I truly seeking? Often, beneath the surface of craving lies something deeper, a longing for comfort, for reassurance, for belonging, for ease. When you recognize the true need beneath desire, you can respond with compassion rather than impulse. Sometimes, what you crave is not the object itself, but the soothing it represents. And compassion gives you that soothing directly, without feeding the longing endlessly. As you sit with this insight, a certain spaciousness opens within you. The tightness associated with desire loosens, as though your inner world has begun to breathe more freely. The Buddha then turns to restlessness, the second challenge many people struggle with. Restlessness is the feeling of being unable to settle, the mind darting from thought to thought, the body fidgeting, the heart beating a little too quickly. It often appears when the mind is anxious, or when the present moment feels uncomfortable. Restlessness makes it hard to focus, hard to breathe deeply, hard to trust stillness. He describes restlessness like a river after a storm, churning, swirling, unable to find its calm. Forcing the river to stop only increases its turbulence. But give it time. Let the winds settle. Let the sky clear, and the water gradually smooths on its own. Your mind behaves in the same way. Restlessness cannot be pushed away, but it can be soothed. The Buddha offers a simple practice. When restlessness arises, return to the breath, not with tightness, but with tenderness. Breathe slowly. Notice the sensations in your body, the air in your chest, the weight of your limbs, the feeling of the ground beneath you. Restlessness often grows when the mind leaves the body completely. But when you come back to the body, the steady anchor of your experience, the mind begins to settle, like a bird returning to its nest. He also encourages you to name what you feel. Restlessness is here. Unease is here. This naming allows you to step out of identification and into observation. You are not restless. Restlessness is simply visiting, and visitors leave. The Buddha speaks of patience as the medicine for restlessness. Not passive patience, but compassionate patience. The willingness to stay with yourself even when the mind is unsettled. Over time, with gentle attention, restlessness loses its power. It stops feeling like a storm and becomes more like a restless breeze passing through. He reminds you that both desire and restlessness arise because the mind wants relief. Relief from discomfort, from uncertainty, from longing. When you meet these feelings with kindness rather than resistance, they soften. They become teachers rather than troubles. Desire reveals what you value. Restlessness reveals where you are afraid. Understanding these parts of yourself allows healing to begin. As the Buddha's words settle in your heart, the night around you seems quieter, more intimate. You feel a sense of inner permission. Permission to feel what you feel without shame. Permission to meet yourself gently, even in struggle. And as this warmth grows within you, the Buddha begins guiding you to the next step of the journey. The tender work of healing deeper emotions with compassion, beginning with the courage to meet pain and sadness with an open heart. The Buddha's words about desire and restlessness linger softly in your awareness, like ripples slowly fading across a quiet lake. You feel a subtle ease inside you now, a sense that even the restless parts of your mind are beginning to trust the stillness growing within. The night seems to lean closer, the air warmer, the space beneath the Bodhi tree gentler than before. And as you breathe, the Buddha's voice rises again, slow, steady, and deeply compassionate, guiding you toward a place many avoid, yet one that holds the key to true peace. He speaks of pain and sadness, the tender emotions that most people tuck away, believing they are signs of weakness or flaws to be fixed. But the Buddha explains that pain is not a mistake. Sadness is not a failure. They are natural waves that move through every human heart. To deny them is to deny your own humanness. To meet them with compassion is to open the door to healing. He invites you to imagine your emotional life as a vast inner landscape. Some parts are bright and open, filled with the warmth of joy and ease. Other parts are shadowed, carrying echoes of loss, disappointment, loneliness, or fear. Many people walk only through the bright areas, pretending the shadows do not exist. But the Buddha gently reminds you that peace does not come from avoiding the shadows. It comes from illuminating them with understanding. He guides you to place your hand lightly over your heart. Beneath your palm, you may feel warmth or tension or a subtle ache that has lived there for a long time. This, he says softly, is the place that longs for compassion. Not judgment, not analysis, simply compassion. A willingness to sit with your pain the way you would sit beside a crying friend, not trying to silence it, but offering presence, patience, and care. You take a slow breath, and he encourages you to recall a moment of sadness, not to relive it, but to acknowledge its existence with gentleness. Maybe it was a loss, a disappointment, a moment when you felt alone, a wound that shaped you. You bring it to mind, not with heaviness, but with the same tenderness you would offer a small child. You let the feeling take shape, knowing it is safe to do so here, in the company of wisdom and compassion. The Buddha explains that suffering intensifies when you turn away from it. Suppression hardens the heart. Avoidance traps the wound in place. But when you turn toward pain with curiosity and kindness, something softens. Pain begins to shift, to breathe, to move. Emotions, he reminds you, are like visitors, meant to be acknowledged, listened to, and eventually released. He describes compassion, karuna, as the natural response of the heart when it understands suffering. Compassion does not try to solve the pain instantly, nor does it judge you for feeling it. It simply sits with you, whispering, "It's okay. You are not alone. You are allowed to feel this." As you listen, you begin to sense, perhaps, for the first time, how harshly you may have treated your own sadness, how often you pushed it away, criticized yourself for it, or feared it would overwhelm you. But here, under the Bodhi tree, sadness feels different. It feels less like a storm and more like a quiet rain, cleansing something deep within you. The Buddha guides your awareness deeper into your chest, inviting you to notice the sensations that arise when you allow yourself to feel fully. A tightness may loosen, a breath may deepen, a warmth may spread. These changes are signs that compassion is beginning to work, softening the places where you once carried your pain alone. He then speaks of self-compassion, something many struggle to practice. Loving others often feels easier than offering that same love to yourself. But the Buddha reminds you that compassion must begin within. You cannot pour water from an empty vessel. When you treat yourself with kindness, even in sadness, the heart becomes capable of even greater love. You feel your breath deepen again, as though your chest is expanding with a newfound tenderness. The Buddha encourages you to imagine placing your sadness into the palms of your hands, gently, carefully, holding it the way you would hold something precious. Not because sadness is pleasant, but because it is a part of you, a part that deserves care rather than rejection. He explains that compassion transforms sadness not by fixing it, but by allowing it to be seen. When sadness is held gently, it begins to unravel the tight knots of suffering around it. It becomes softer, lighter, more spacious. Pain turns into understanding. Sadness turns into connection. And the heart that once felt heavy becomes open again. As the night air drifts softly around you, the Buddha's teachings settle deeply in your heart. You feel a profound sense of peace, not because your sadness has disappeared, but because you no longer fear it. You can sit with it. You can understand it. You can care for it. And from this compassion, he says, arises a powerful and healing energy. An energy that extends beyond your own suffering and reaches outward toward all beings. This is the practice of loving kindness, a practice that transforms the heart from within and radiates outward like the first light of dawn. With your heart now softened and open, the Buddha begins to guide you into the next chapter, the gentle and radiant practice of loving kindness, where compassion blossoms into pure, unconditional goodwill for yourself and for all beings. The Buddha's teachings on compassion settle warmly inside you, leaving your heart feeling softer, more spacious, as if a gentle light has begun to glow from within. You breathe slowly, sensing how meeting your own pain with kindness has already shifted something deep in your chest. The night around you feels tender and alive. Every rustle of leaves, every glimmer of starlight, every breath of wind carrying a quiet harmony, and into that stillness, the Buddha's voice rises once more, filled with a warmth so steady it feels like sunlight in the darkness. He begins to speak of loving kindness, known as metta, a boundless, unconditional goodwill that radiates outward from the heart. While compassion is the response to suffering, loving kindness is the wish for all beings to be well, peaceful, and happy. It is a gentle blooming of the heart, not dependent on mood, circumstance, or deserving. Metta is a practice that opens the mind to limitless care, dissolving the walls that separate you from others. It begins tenderly with yourself, and then expands like ripples across a still pond. The Buddha guides you first to place your awareness back on your heart. Beneath your hand, or within your chest, feel the subtle warmth, the life pulsing steadily. This is the center of your inner world, the place where kindness takes root. Even if the heart feels tender or guarded, loving kindness begins gently, with patience. You do not force the heart open. You simply invite it. He speaks softly, encouraging you to repeat a simple phrase within yourself. May I be peaceful. At first, the words might feel tentative, unfamiliar, but as you repeat them slowly, something begins to soften. You are not demanding peace. You are offering it. You are wishing it for yourself the same way someone who deeply cares for you might. The Buddha encourages you to say it again, slowly, meaningfully, allowing the words to settle into the spaces inside you. May I be peaceful. Next, he invites you to expand this wish just a little further. May I be safe. You feel the meaning of these words in your body, like a warm, protective blanket wrapping gently around your shoulders. Safety does not mean avoiding challenge. It means feeling supported, held by your own kindness. Then he guides you gently to the third phrase. May I be free from suffering. Not free from sadness, not free from hardship, but free from the inner knot of suffering, the tightness of fear, the weight of self-judgment, the pressure of unmet expectations. As you repeat the phrase inwardly, you feel a subtle loosening, the beginnings of forgiveness for yourself. The Buddha smiles softly as he watches you settle into the rhythm of loving kindness. He now invites you to extend this same intention outward, to someone you care about. Picture their face. See their smile, or their eyes, or the warmth they carry. Let your heart say, with the same sincerity, may you be peaceful. May you be safe. May you be free from suffering. As you repeat the words, you feel a gentle warmth in your chest, like sunlight spreading across a quiet field. Loving kindness grows effortlessly when directed toward those you care for. It opens the heart naturally, without strain. But the Buddha guides you further, inviting you to extend metta to someone neutral, a person you know but do not feel strongly about. Perhaps a neighbor you see occasionally, or someone who passes you on the street. Visualize their presence and offer the same wishes. May you be peaceful. May you be safe. May you be free from suffering. You may feel a subtle shift doing this, an expansion, a broadening of your empathy. Your heart is learning to care without conditions. Then the Buddha gently leads you to the most challenging part of the practice, extending loving kindness to someone you find difficult. At first, resistance may arise, a tightening in the chest, or a flicker of discomfort. But metta is not about approving their actions. It is about recognizing their humanity, their struggles, their fears, their longing for happiness, just like you. With a patient breath, offer the phrases again. May you be peaceful. May you be safe. May you be free from suffering. As you say the words, something unexpected happens. A softness appears, not for the person's behavior, but for the pain within them that led to it. The Buddha explains that loving kindness is a practice of freeing the heart, not excusing harm. It allows you to release the weight you've carried, the tension of resentment, the tightness of old wounds. Finally, he guides you to expand your metta outward in all directions, imagining it like light flowing from your heart, illuminating every corner of existence, to all beings you know and do not know, to all who are joyful and all who suffer, to all living creatures, seen and unseen, to all places, all hearts, all lives. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be safe. May all beings be free from suffering. The clearing around you seems brighter now, the air charged with a gentle radiance. You feel your heart more open than before, warm, tender, and connected to everything around you. The Buddha lets the silence stretch, allowing the glow of loving kindness to settle deeply within you. And as this warmth fills you, the Buddha begins guiding you toward the next step, an equally transformative practice that often rises naturally after loving kindness. The deep and grounding power of gratitude, a practice that roots the heart in appreciation and strengthens the peace you have begun to cultivate. The warmth of loving kindness still glows in your chest, spreading outward like ripples on a calm pond. You feel lighter now, gentler with yourself, and more open to the world around you. As this tenderness settles, the Buddha's voice rises once more, soft, steady, carrying a sense of gentle encouragement. You sense that he is guiding you toward a practice that deepens everything you've learned so far, a practice that roots peace in the soil of appreciation. He begins to speak of gratitude, the quiet joy of recognizing the gifts already present in your life. Gratitude, he says, is not about forcing yourself to feel happy or pretending everything is perfect. It is the practice of noticing the small blessings that sustain you, blessings so constant you often overlook. them. Gratitude opens the heart to the richness of each moment, nurturing a sense of belonging, contentment, and calm. The Buddha invites you first to notice your breath, the simple rise and fall, the gentle movement that has been with you every moment since birth. You do not have to earn it. You do not have to ask for it. It is freely given, breath after breath, sustaining your life with quiet generosity. As you recognize this, a soft appreciation begins to bloom within you, as if you are seeing your own aliveness for the first time. He guides you to reflect on the body that carries you, your hands that can touch and hold, your feet that have walked through so many experiences, your heart that continues to beat no matter what burdens it has carried. Even if your body is imperfect, tired, or wounded, it has never abandoned you. It has sustained you through every trial, every joy, every ordinary day. Gratitude for the body is not about perfection, but about recognizing its devotion to your life. The Buddha encourages you to think of the countless moments in your life shaped by small kindnesses, a meal prepared by someone's hands, a smile given freely, a moment when someone listened without judgment. These moments may appear small, but they accumulate like grains of sand, forming the foundation of your well-being. When you pause long enough to notice them, they become treasures. You feel a shift inside as these reflections settle, a sense of warmth filling your chest. Gratitude doesn't erase difficulty, but it softens the heart enough to hold both joy and sorrow at once. It allows you to see that even in hard times, life continues to offer small gifts, a gentle breeze, a warm light, a familiar voice, a quiet moment of rest. The Buddha explains that gratitude is closely connected to mindfulness. When the mind is scattered, it rushes past life's blessings without seeing them. But with awareness, even simple moments, a sip of water, the scent of rain, the glow of moonlight, become invitations to appreciate the world more deeply. Gratitude anchors you to the present moment, grounding you in what is real rather than what is missing. He shares that gratitude also prepares the heart to understand impermanence, one of the most essential truths. Everything you appreciate, your breath, your sensations, the people you love, the experiences you hold dear, exists only for a moment before it changes. This may seem sorrowful at first, but the Buddha explains that impermanence is what makes life precious. A flower is beautiful because it blooms briefly. A moment is meaningful because it cannot be repeated. A loved one's presence is cherished because time with them is finite. Gratitude and impermanence are intertwined. To appreciate something fully is to acknowledge its fleeting nature, and to understand impermanence is to treasure every breath, every connection, every experience more deeply. The Buddha invites you to look around the clearing. You see the leaves trembling softly in the breeze. You hear the distant call of night creatures. You feel the ground warm beneath you. All of this exists only in this moment. No moment is ever exactly the same again. And because of this, every moment is a miracle. You feel your breath deepen, the air filling your chest with a sense of reverence. Gratitude sharpens your awareness of life's beauty. Impermanence sharpens your awareness of its fragility. Together, they open the heart to a profound and grounded joy. The Buddha encourages you to offer silent thanks to the earth beneath you, to your breath sustaining you, to the many hands that shaped your life, to the lessons that strengthened you, to the presence of this very moment. Even the challenges you faced have brought you to this point of deeper understanding and compassion. Gratitude makes you whole. As the warmth of appreciation spreads through you, the Buddha's voice softens again, preparing to guide you even deeper into the nature of existence. Gratitude opens the door, but what lies beyond is the profound insight into the ever-changing flow of life, the truth of impermanence itself. And with a gentle steadiness, he begins to lead you toward the next teaching. How everything arises, changes, and passes, and how understanding this brings freedom to the heart. The glow of gratitude still warms your chest, soft and steady, like a small lantern held close to the heart. You breathe gently, feeling more anchored than before, more attuned to the quiet gifts surrounding you. As this appreciation settles, the Buddha's voice rises again, smooth, calm, carrying the weight of ancient understanding. You sense that he is guiding you toward one of the deepest truths he ever shared, a truth that sits at the very center of all his teachings. He begins to speak of impermanence, known as anicca, the truth that all things arise, change, and pass away. The Buddha explains that impermanence is not meant to frighten you, it is meant to free you. Everything you treasure, everything you fear, everything you hold tightly is always in a state of transformation. This is the nature of life itself. When you understand this deeply, the heart becomes lighter, more flexible, more open to what is here. He gestures gently toward the branches above, where a single leaf loosens its hold and drifts downward. You watch its gentle descent, carried softly by the breeze until it comes to rest on the warm earth. Just like this leaf, the Buddha says, every moment of your life unfolds and then dissolves. Nothing remains exactly as it was, and this is what makes everything precious. You look around the clearing, noticing the subtle changes you hadn't seen before. The moon has shifted slightly in the sky. The shadows have grown softer. The wind has moved to a different rhythm. Even your breath, though endlessly repeating, is never the same twice. Each inhale brings new air, new possibility. Each exhale lets go of what has already been lived. The Buddha explains that impermanence can be seen in the changing seasons, the blossoms of spring that fade into summer, the lush greenery that yields to autumn's gold, the stillness of winter awaiting new life. Nature does not resist change. It flows with it. And when you learn to flow the same way, peace arises naturally. He invites you to reflect on your own life. Every joy you've experienced, moments of laughter, love, connection, was impermanent. And yet, that impermanence did not diminish their beauty. It deepened it. Every sorrow you've endured, loss, disappointment, heartbreak, was also impermanent. Even the deepest pain softened with time, became memory, became understanding. In seeing this truth, you realize that nothing lasts forever. Not joy, not sorrow, not fear, not longing. Everything moves. The Buddha then guides you even deeper, He explains that impermanence applies not only to the world around you, but to your inner experience as well. Thoughts arise, stay for a moment, and pass. Feelings bloom, change, and dissolve. Sensations flicker into awareness and disappear. Even your identity, your beliefs, your preferences, your story evolves from year to year, moment to moment. You begin to sense the fluidity of your being, like a river constantly flowing. Never the same water, yet always itself. This understanding softens the grip of fear, especially the fear of change. You start to see that trying to hold life still is like trying to grasp flowing water. It only slips through your fingers. The Buddha's voice remains gentle as he explains why this truth matters. Much of human suffering comes from resisting impermanence, clinging to what is pleasant, pushing away what is painful, trying to freeze experiences as they are. But when you accept the changing nature of life, you no longer struggle against the current. You float, you glide, you trust. Peace becomes possible not because life stops changing, but because you stop fighting the changes. A soft breeze moves through the clearing, scattering a few more leaves to the ground. You watch their effortless dance, and something inside you begins to relax. The idea of letting go no longer feels frightening. It feels natural. The Buddha then leads you toward the next layer of understanding, one that arises directly from impermanence. If everything is constantly changing, your thoughts, your emotions, your identity, then what is your true self? What remains constant? What is the you that moves through all these shifting experiences? He explains that this question points toward the truth of non-self, known as anatta. It does not mean you do not exist, but that you are not fixed or separate. You are a living process, woven from countless causes and conditions, always evolving, always interconnected with the world around you. As he speaks, you sense the quiet wonder of this insight. You are not a solid, unchanging being trapped in a rigid story. You are a flowing, living, breathing part of Bwakcher's endless dance. The night air settles, calm and luminous, as the Buddha prepares to guide you into this profound truth. With impermanence now alive in your understanding, he gently leads you toward the next chapter, the deep and liberating realization of non-self, where the boundaries of I soften and the heart opens to the vastness of all existence. The truth of impermanence settles gently into your heart like a soft mist, clearing the air inside you. You feel lighter, knowing that change is not an enemy, but a natural rhythm, something that shapes every breath, every moment, every memory. As this understanding takes root, the Buddha's voice rises again, calm, warm, carrying the depth of a truth that reaches to the very core of human experience. He begins to guide you toward a teaching that often sounds mysterious, yet is profoundly simple when felt directly within the heart. He speaks of non-self, known as anatta, the insight that what you call you is not a fixed, solid thing, but a flowing process of experiences, conditions, and causes. The Buddha explains that people suffer when they cling tightly to a rigid identity, when they believe, I am this, or I must remain this way, or this is who I am forever. But when you look closely, gently, honestly, you discover something freeing. The self you defend so fiercely is always changing. The Buddha invites you to look within. Notice your thoughts. A moment ago, they were one way. Now they are different. Notice your emotions. They rise, fade, shift, and transform. Notice your body. It grows, ages, heals, responds. Even your opinions, beliefs, dreams, and fears have evolved through the years. What you call I is not fixed. It is a river, moving, flowing, shaped by every encounter, every breath, every choice. He extends his hand toward the forest around you. Just as the wind shapes the leaves, he says, the world shapes your mind. And just as the river takes many forms, still water, rapid flow, gentle current, your mind and identity change with the conditions around you. Nothing stands alone. Nothing exists by itself. You feel the truth of this as the night breeze brushes your skin. That breeze came from currents in the air, from changes in temperature, from forests far beyond this clearing. It touches you because everything is connected. In the same way, your thoughts arise because of influences, your past, your environment, the people who guided you, the experiences that shaped you. Every part of you exists because of countless causes. The Buddha explains that non-self does not mean you disappear, or that your life has no meaning. On the contrary, it means you are more than one fixed identity. You are not trapped in your past. You are not defined by your mistakes. You are not limited to one version of yourself. You are dynamic, interconnected, ever becoming. A deep sense of relief spreads gently through your chest. You begin to understand why people cling so tightly to their identity, because they believe losing it means losing themselves. But the Buddha shows you that letting go of rigid identity is not loss. It is liberation. It is the freedom to grow, to evolve, to respond to life with openness rather than fear. He invites you to consider a simple image, a candle flame. When you look closely, you see that the flame is never the same from one moment to the next. It flickers, reforms, shifts, and yet it appears continuous. Your sense of self is the same, a continuity made of constant change. Understanding this frees you from clinging to fixed roles, from harsh self-judgment, from expectations that weigh on the mind. The Buddha then guides your awareness outward. If you are not separate, if you are shaped by everything around you, then so is everyone else. Every person you meet carries conditions, histories, and unseen struggles. Their fears are shaped by their past, their hopes by their experiences, their actions by their pain or their understanding. You begin to see that there is no other in the strict sense, only different expressions of the same interconnected life. This insight, the Buddha explains, naturally awakens compassion. When you see that you and others are not fundamentally separate, it becomes easier to forgive, easier to understand, easier to care. This is the heart that emerges from the realization of non-self. The heart that recognizes that kindness toward another is kindness toward the whole. You breathe in this truth slowly, allowing it to soften the boundaries within you. The edges of me and them begin to blur. A gentle warmth fills your chest, a sense of belonging, not to any single identity, but to the vast, interconnected web of life. The Buddha's voice becomes quieter now, as though he is preparing you for what comes next. He explains that when you understand non-self, something beautiful begins to flourish naturally. Generosity. When you no longer cling tightly to a rigid self, giving becomes effortless. You realize that nothing truly belongs to you alone. Not your possessions, not your time, not even your talents. Everything you have is the result of countless conditions, and sharing it becomes an expression of gratitude rather than loss. With the insight of non-self blooming gently in your heart, the Buddha begins to guide you toward the next chapter, an exploration of generosity, the joyful act of opening your hands and allowing kindness to flow outward, just as freely as the world has offered its gifts to you. The understanding of non-self continues to settle in your awareness like a soft, expansive breeze, loosening the boundaries that once felt so rigid. You feel lighter now, as though the tight grip around your sense of me has gently softened. The Buddha observes this quiet opening in you, and with a warm, serene smile, he begins to guide you toward the natural flowering that arises when the heart no longer clings. His voice carries a gentle brightness, like morning sunlight touching the horizon. He begins to speak of generosity, known as dana, the simple, joyful act of giving. The Buddha explains that generosity is not merely an action, but a state of mind, a natural expression of a heart that recognizes its connection to all beings. When you understand that everything in your life has come from countless conditions, your breath, your nourishment, your knowledge, your very existence, giving becomes as natural as exhaling after you inhale. It is not a loss. It is the completion of a cycle. He invites you to imagine holding a handful of water tightly. If you squeeze your hand shut, the water slips away, leaking through your fingers. But if you open your palm gently, the water rests there, reflecting the light. In the same way, the Buddha says, when you cling to your possessions, your time, your approval, your energy, they create tension inside you. But when you share them freely, they become sources of connection and joy. Generosity is the open hand that allows life to flow. The Buddha reminds you that giving does not need to be grand. In fact, the most powerful gifts are often small. A kind word, a patient gesture, time offered without hurry, attention given without distraction, compassion expressed without expectation. Each of these acts becomes a thread in the fabric of human connection. When you give in this way, you create ripples of warmth that extend far beyond the moment, touching hearts you may never know. You think back on your life and notice moments when someone's generosity made a difference. A teacher who stayed a little longer to explain something. A friend who listened without judgment. A stranger who held a door when your hands were full. These gestures were simple, yet they brightened your path. The Buddha explains that your own acts of kindness may have had the same effect on others, even if you never witnessed it. He describes a key truth. Generosity frees you. When you give, you loosen the grip of possessiveness. You release the fear that says, I do not have enough, or I must hold tightly to feel safe. Giving reminds you that abundance is not measured by what you keep, but by what flows through your life. A generous heart feels spacious because it is not weighed down by fear or clinging. The Buddha's voice takes on a softer tone as he explains the deeper wisdom behind generosity. Every act of giving weakens the illusion of separateness. Each time you give, you affirm the truth that others' happiness is connected to your own. You begin to see that life is not a competition, but a shared journey. Giving becomes a way of harmonizing with the world, of aligning your actions with the deep understanding that you are part of something larger than yourself. You notice your own breath deepening, as if generosity has already begun to open something in you. The Buddha continues, explaining that generosity also cultivates ethical harmony. When the heart releases selfishness, it naturally moves toward kindness, honesty, and compassion. Generosity sets the foundation for a peaceful life because it shifts the mind from taking to offering, from guarding to sharing, from fear to trust. He invites you to reflect on the joy of giving without expecting anything in return. There is a freedom in offering something simply because it might ease another's burden or brighten their moment. This joy is pure. It does not bind you to outcomes, nor does it depend on recognition. It arises from the act itself, a warmth that blossoms in the chest like a small sun. The Buddha then places a gentle emphasis on another form of giving, the giving of yourself in presence. In a world full of distractions, offering full attention is one of the rarest gifts. When you listen deeply, when you show up sincerely, when you share space with someone without rushing or judging, you are giving something invaluable, your heart's presence. You realize that generosity is not a transaction. It is an expression of love, of connection, of shared humanity. It is the gesture of saying, you matter, your happiness matters, your suffering matters. And in offering this, your own heart becomes more spacious, more peaceful, more joyful. The clearing feels brighter now, as though the earth itself has softened in response to the Buddha's words. The trees stand quietly around you, their leaves whispering gently, as if they too are practicing generosity, offering shade, offering oxygen, offering beauty without asking for anything in return. With this understanding blooming inside you, the Buddha's voice shifts once more, guiding you forward. He explains that the heart that gives naturally becomes the heart that lives with ethical clarity, a heart that chooses harmony, compassion, and integrity, not out of obligation, but out of genuine care. And with that gentle momentum, he begins leading you into the next chapter, the practice of right conduct in daily life, where generosity and wisdom shape every action you take. The Buddha's teachings on generosity settle into your heart like warm sunlight easing across the horizon. You feel how naturally an open hand leads to an open heart, and how an open heart begins to transform the way you move through the world. As this realization spreads gently through your chest, the Buddha's voice rises again, steady, compassionate, and deeply grounding. You sense that he is guiding you now toward a way of living that flows directly from generosity, a life rooted in harmony, patience, and understanding. He begins by reminding you that every being you encounter, human, animal, or otherwise, shares the same fundamental wishes. to be safe, to be at ease, to be free from suffering. When this truth becomes part of your awareness, something inside you shifts. You no longer see others as obstacles or threats. You see them as companions on the same fragile, beautiful journey. The Buddha invites you to imagine walking through the world with this understanding. A stranger's frown no longer feels like an attack. It becomes a sign of their inner struggle. A harsh word reveals someone's pain rather than their malice. A moment of impatience from another becomes an opportunity for compassion rather than conflict. When you look deeper, you begin to notice how much suffering exists beneath the surface of ordinary life. Living in harmony begins with this recognition. Every being is carrying something you cannot see. The Buddha's voice softens, guiding you to reflect on your own past. You recall times when you reacted from stress, fear, or sadness. Moments when your behavior did not reflect your true intentions. Just as you needed understanding then, others need it now. Harmony is born from this mutual recognition. All beings are imperfect. All beings are learning. All beings are worthy of patience. He then speaks of patience, a quality often misunderstood. Patience is not passive endurance or forced tolerance. True patience is strength, a calm willingness to let things unfold without reacting in haste. Patience protects your peace. It turns small moments of tension into opportunities for clarity. It allows others the space to grow, the space to be human. The Buddha explains that patience begins with the breath. When irritation arises, the mind wants to react immediately. But if you pause, if you breathe deeply, even once, you create a moment of spaciousness. In that space, wisdom can enter. You respond rather than react. You choose peace rather than impulse. That small moment of pause is the birthplace of harmony. He guides you toward forgiveness, another essential part of living in peace with others. Forgiveness does not excuse harmful actions. It does not ignore injustice. What forgiveness does is free your own heart from the weight of resentment. Holding on to anger is like gripping a burning coal. It hurts you long before it ever harms the one who wronged you. Forgiveness, the Buddha says, is an offering you give yourself. When you forgive, even if quietly or inwardly, you loosen the chains that once bound your heart. You reclaim the energy that resentment drained, and you create space for healing to grow. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is letting go of the desire for revenge, releasing the belief that the past must continue to harm you. As you breathe deeply, a quiet release begins inside you, like a knot gently untangling. The Buddha reminds you that living in harmony is not only about how you treat others, it is also about how you treat yourself. When you are harsh with yourself, when you push yourself too hard or judge yourself too severely, disharmony grows within. But when you treat yourself with patience, forgiveness, and kindness, you create a peaceful inner environment. That inner peace naturally extends outward into your interactions with others, shaping your world with gentleness. The night around you reflects this truth. You notice how every sound seems softer now. The whisper of the wind, the gentle sway of branches, the distant hum of night creatures. Nature does not force harmony, it simply expresses it. Every element coexists without struggle, each part playing its role in the larger whole. In this way, nature mirrors the Buddha's teaching. Harmony arises when each being is allowed to be as it is, without judgment or insistence. The Buddha speaks of the ultimate purpose of harmony, to prepare the heart for deeper stillness. When you live in peace with others, with yourself, and with the world, the mind becomes quieter. The heart becomes lighter. The inner landscape becomes fertile ground for profound meditation, where wisdom can flourish without obstruction. You feel the truth of this as your breath deepens once more. Something inside you has softened, widened, opened. You sense the beauty of harmony, not as an idea, but as a feeling. Warm, spacious, grounded. And as the Buddha's voice gently fades into the stillness of the night, you sense that he is preparing to guide you into the next stage of the journey, the deepening of meditation itself, a path that leads the mind into profound stillness and clarity. The Buddha's teachings on peaceful coexistence continue to glow softly within you, like gentle embers warming the center of your chest. You feel steadier now, more open, more attuned to the subtle harmonies of the world around you. The night itself seems calmer, as though even the stars have grown still, listening with quiet anticipation. In this deepening silence, the Buddha's presence feels even more serene, and when he begins to speak again, his voice carries the softness of a breeze moving through tall grass. He tells you that harmony with others naturally prepares the heart for a deeper harmony within. Meditation, he explains, is not an escape from life, but a turning toward the deepest truth of your own experience. It is the art of resting in awareness, of letting the mind settle into stillness so the essence of things becomes clear. Meditation is where insight grows, where peace deepens, where the heart begins to recognize its own vastness. The Buddha invites you to sit comfortably beneath the Bodhi tree. You adjust your posture, finding a position that feels natural and steady. The ground beneath you offers gentle support. Your spine rises softly, as though drawn upward by the moonlight itself. Your hands rest loosely in your lap. Your breath begins to deepen, not by force, but by the natural easing of your body into the present moment. He whispers, "Let your awareness settle on the breath." You follow his guidance, placing your attention gently at the tip of your nose or the rise and fall of your chest. Wherever the breath feels most vivid, you begin to notice the coolness of the inhale, the warmth of the exhale. Each breath flows without effort, like waves arriving at the shore and returning to the sea. You do not control the breath, you simply accompany it. With each inhale, you feel spaciousness spreading through your ribs. With each exhale, you feel the body loosening, softening, releasing. The Buddha encourages you to imagine your breath as a soft beam of light entering through the nose, filling the chest, illuminating the heart, and then flowing back out. Each breath becomes a gentle cleansing, washing away tension, clearing the dust of thoughts, creating room for ease. Gradually, your awareness begins to quiet. The mind, once full of movement, begins to rest. Thoughts still arise, but they drift like clouds across a calm sky, appearing, dissolving, passing without disturbing the stillness beneath. If your mind wanders, the Buddha reminds you, simply return to the breath. No judgment, no frustration, just the soft returning, again and again. This returning is the heart of meditation, an act of remembering your own presence. As you breathe, the Buddha begins to guide you deeper. Imagine, he says, that you are standing at the edge of a tranquil forest pool. You see it clearly in your mind's eye, a smooth surface reflecting moonlight, surrounded by ancient trees and gentle shadows. The water is perfectly still, undisturbed by wind or ripple. This pool is your mind in its peaceful state. He invites you to imagine sitting beside this pool, watching the reflections, the moon, the branches, the stars. These reflections are like your thoughts, shapes and patterns appearing within awareness. You do not need to change them. You simply watch them with calm curiosity. As you watch, the reflections become softer, less distinct, until the water becomes perfectly clear. The Buddha speaks again, his voice blending with the quiet night. When the mind becomes still, it becomes a mirror, and in that clarity, truth reveals itself. You feel yourself sinking deeper into this guided imagery. The boundaries of your physical body begin to soften. Your breath becomes quieter. Your mind becomes spacious. You begin to sense the vastness within you, the quiet expanse that has always been there beneath the noise of daily thought. The Buddha now guides you further inward. Place your attention gently on the center of your chest, he says. Notice the feeling of being alive, the subtle vibration, the quiet warmth, the space where your awareness rests. As you focus here, you begin to feel the subtle pulsing of life itself, a presence that is calm, steady, and unchanging beneath all else. This presence is deeper than thought, deeper than emotion. It is the quiet witness behind everything you experience. In this place, you feel no tension, no striving, no fear, only stillness, only peace. You stay with this sensation, breathing softly, feeling the warmth grow. The Buddha reminds you that meditation is not about forcing the mind into silence, but about resting in the awareness that is already silent. Thoughts may come, sounds may arise, sensations may shift, but beneath all of it, this quiet presence remains. It feels like returning home. The Buddha allows a long silence to bloom between you, giving your mind time to rest in this sacred stillness. The night deepens further, the air cool and gentle on your skin, the earth holding you like an old friend. And when the Buddha finally speaks again, his voice is softer than ever, as though carrying you forward on a calm river of awareness. He explains that meditation naturally leads to insight, an understanding that arises not from thinking, but from seeing clearly. Insight reveals the true nature of the mind, uncovering wisdom hidden beneath habitual patterns. With your heart now steady and your mind beginning to open from within, the Buddha begins to guide you into the next chapter, where the stillness you've cultivated becomes a doorway to profound understanding. The insight that reveals the nature of reality itself. The stillness you cultivated beneath the Bodhi tree feels like a soft cocoon around your mind, holding you with a quiet steadiness you've rarely known. The breath flows easily now, each inhale a gentle expansion, each exhale a peaceful release. Your awareness rests like a calm moon over a tranquil lake, unhurried and unaffected by the ripples that once disturbed it. The Buddha observes this deepening calm with a serene smile, and when he begins to speak again, his voice blends naturally with the stillness you've entered, soft, unforced, arising as effortlessly as a breeze. He explains that when the mind becomes quiet, understanding does not need to be chased. Insight arises the way dawn appears, not by force, but by the natural unfolding of light. You do not command the sun to rise. You simply create the conditions to witness its arrival. In the same way, true understanding blooms when the mind is settled enough to see clearly. The Buddha invites you to continue resting in the gentle awareness you've cultivated. As you breathe, you notice subtle movements within the mind, tiny flickers of thought, soft echoes of memory, faint impressions of emotion. But these no longer disturb you. They pass like drifting reflections on the surface of a still pond. And as you observe them, something quiet begins to dawn inside you. You see, the Buddha says softly, when the mind is silent, it reveals the truth that has always been present. He explains that insight is not something added to the mind, it is something uncovered. Like brushing dust off a mirror, meditation removes the layers of confusion, revealing the clarity beneath. The truths you encounter in this silence are not foreign. They are deeply familiar, like remembering something you once knew, but had forgotten. The first insight that emerges is the realization of impermanence. You see, not through concepts, but through direct experience, that every thought passes, every sensation shifts, every emotion rises and dissolves. You witness the flowing nature of your inner world, and this understanding softens your grip on everything you once tried to hold tightly. Change no longer feels threatening. It feels natural. From this understanding, another insight arises, the truth of non-self. As you watch the movements of your mind, you notice that none of them are you. A thought appears, then disappears. A feeling arises, then fades. Sensations come and go like clouds drifting through a vast sky. You begin to see that you are not these passing experiences. You are the awareness that observes them. This awareness is spacious, steady, and untouched. A profound sense of relief begins to spread through you. If you are not defined by your thoughts, you are not limited by them. If you are not defined by your emotions, you are not trapped by them. You begin to understand that suffering arises when you cling to these passing states, believing them to be permanent or personal. But in the silence, you see them for what they are, movements of the mind, nothing more. The Buddha continues, explaining that as these insights deepen, the heart naturally becomes more compassionate. When you see your own inner world with clarity, you begin to understand the struggles of others more deeply. You see that they too are moved by thoughts they did not choose, emotions they did not invite, fears they did not create. Compassion arises not from effort, but from understanding. You feel this compassion blooming within you now, a softness, a tenderness, a wish for all beings to be free from the confusion that once weighed on your own heart. This compassion is not dramatic. It is gentle, quiet, steady. It becomes like a warm current beneath the surface of your awareness, supporting everything you do. The Buddha guides you even deeper, reminding you that silence does more than reveal truth. It prepares the heart to receive wisdom that cannot be understood through thinking alone. In this silence, insight arises as a direct experience, not as a concept. Understanding becomes lived, embodied, real. You feel something shift inside you, a widening, an opening, a clarity that feels like a window has been cleaned after years of dust. You see not only your inner world, but the world around you with greater brightness. The trees seem more alive. The night feels more intimate. Even your own breath feels like a miracle, arising and dissolving effortlessly. The Buddha lets this realization settle, allowing you to rest in the spaciousness that now fills your awareness. And as the silence deepens once more, the next phase of the journey begins to shimmer at the edge of your perception, the unfolding of wisdom through story. With the mind now clear and receptive, the Buddha prepares to guide you by weaving simple tales, parables that illuminate timeless truths in ways the heart can hold easily. With a gentle smile, he begins to lead you toward the next chapter, where wisdom is shared through stories that shine like lanterns along the path. The stillness that has settled within you feels deep and steady, as though your entire being has become a quiet lake reflecting moonlight. Insight has begun to unfold like petals opening at dawn, and the Buddha senses that your mind is ready not just to understand, but to see. He pauses for a moment, allowing the night air to breathe around you, and then begins to speak in a tone that carries both warmth and clarity, the tone of a teacher who has guided countless hearts before yours. He tells you that wisdom often blooms best through simple stories, stories that speak directly to the heart, bypassing the tangle of thoughts. With a gentle smile, he begins one such tale, one that has been shared for millennia because of the truth it reveals. Imagine, the Buddha begins, a traveler walking through a dense forest. You see the image clearly in your mind. A lone traveler moving along a narrow path, surrounded by tall trees and thick underbrush. The air is humid, heavy with the scent of earth. The traveler is weary, burdened by the long journey, longing for safety and rest. One day, the Buddha continues, this traveler reaches the edge of a wide and rushing river. You picture the river, fast, strong, impossible to cross by swimming. The far shore is peaceful, open, promising safety, but on this side, danger lurks. Wild animals, thick forest, paths that vanish into shadows. The traveler must leave this side behind. So, he gathers branches, the Buddha says softly, and vines, and whatever pieces of wood he can find. With patience, he builds a raft. You see the traveler tying the pieces together with trembling hands, assembling them into something that might carry him across. The raft is simple, crude, but sturdy enough to float. He pushes it into the water, holds on tightly, and begins to paddle with great effort. The river tries to pull him away, but the raft keeps him afloat. Slowly, he reaches the far shore. When the traveler arrives, exhausted but relieved, he steps onto the new land, solid, calm, safe. Here the Buddha pauses, letting the silence deepen. Now, he asks gently, what should the traveler do with the raft? You consider the question. The raft saved him. It carried him across danger. It was essential to his survival. The instinct to cling to it arises immediately, because it was useful, because it feels important, because letting go of something that helped you feels uncomfortable. The Buddha's eyes soften. Should he lift it onto his back, he asks, and carry it through the forest for the rest of his journey? You feel the weight of the imagined raft, heavy, awkward, unnecessary now that the river has been crossed. Or, the Buddha continues, should he thank the raft, acknowledge its purpose, and leave it behind? The answer becomes clear. He should let it go. The Buddha smiles, seeing the understanding in your eyes. This, he explains, is the nature of the teachings. They are a raft that helps you cross from confusion to clarity, from suffering to peace. They are tools, useful, supportive, life-saving, but they are not meant to be clung to. He tells you that many people grasp teachings rigidly, treating them as rules rather than guidance. But wisdom is not found in clinging. It is found in understanding when something has served its purpose. Just as the traveler must release the raft to continue his journey with freedom, you must release the teachings when they are no longer needed, not to discard them, but to recognize that wisdom must flow with life, not remain tied to form. You feel something within you soften. Perhaps there are beliefs you've carried for years, beliefs that once protected you, but now weigh heavily. Perhaps there are habits or identities that were once useful, but no longer fit. The parable invites you to consider, what rafts am I still carrying? What have you clung to simply because it once helped you? The Buddha encourages you to look at your own journey. The fears that guided you in the past may not be needed now. The defenses you built may no longer protect you. They may only limit you. The stories you once told about who you are might be too small for who you are becoming. Letting go does not mean forgetting the past. It means not dragging it with you. You breathe deeply, sensing the truth of this. Letting go feels like setting down a weight you didn't even realize you were carrying. It feels like opening your hands. It feels like trusting the path ahead. The Buddha reminds you that this freedom, this lightness, allows new wisdom to arise. When the mind is not crowded with old rafts, it becomes spacious, open to insight, open to joy. You feel that spaciousness growing within you now, expanding like a clear sky after rain. The story lingers in your mind as the night deepens around you. The raft floats quietly in your imagination, gently bumping against the riverbank, unneeded but honored for its service. And in that stillness, the Buddha prepares to guide you toward the next teaching. A story not about tools, but about hope, compassion, and the noble patience of someone who refused to abandon others on the path. A tale of rescue, determination, and unconditional love. With a peaceful breath, he begins leading you toward the next chapter, the parable of the burning house, where wisdom meets urgency in a story that reveals the depth of compassion in every awakened heart. The parable of the raft settles gently into your mind, its meaning lingering like a quiet echo across the clearing. You feel lighter now, clearer, as though something that once clung tightly around your heart has finally loosened. The Buddha watches you with a calm, steady gaze, sensing the spaciousness beginning to open within you. And as the night deepens, he begins to speak again, this time with a softness that carries both compassion and urgency, as if guiding you toward a truth many people overlook in their search for peace. He tells you of a man long ago who was struck by a poisoned arrow. The arrow entered his flesh deeply, carrying a venom that would soon take his life unless it was removed. But instead of calling for a healer, the man began to demand answers. "Before you pull out this arrow," he insisted, "I must know who shot it. Was he tall or short, young or old? Did he come from the north, south, east, or west? What kind of bow did he use? What was the arrow made of? What kind of feather fletching does it have? Who crafted the poison? How long was the arrow shaft? Tell me every detail, every cause, every condition." The people around him begged him to let them remove the arrow, to save his life, but he refused. "Not until I understand everything," he said. The Buddha pauses, letting the story sink into your heart. "And the man," he continues quietly, "died with the arrow still inside him." A hush falls over the clearing, settled and heavy with understanding. You feel the weight of the story sinking into your chest, not as fear, but as recognition. The Buddha gently explains that many people live as this man did. When struck by the arrows of life, pain, disappointment, confusion, they become lost in questions that do not lead to freedom. Why did this happen? Who caused it? What if I had done something differently? What will happen next? What does it mean? Why me? Why now? The mind spirals endlessly, searching for explanations that cannot heal the wound. The suffering deepens, not because the wound is impossible to heal, but because the mind refuses to let go of its demands for certainty. You realize how often you, too, have clung to these questions. How many nights you've spent replaying a moment, analyzing someone's words, imagining scenarios that never came to pass. The arrow remained in place, and the pain lingered because the mind would not stop searching for answers. The Buddha shows you that overthinking is not wisdom. It is avoidance disguised as analysis. The wound needs compassion, not interrogation. The pain needs acknowledgement, not endless theories. The mind needs presence, not spirals of fear. He speaks gently, as though soothing a frightened child. "There are questions that help you awaken," he says, "and questions that entangle you. Wisdom lies in knowing the difference." You breathe slowly, feeling this truth land inside your body. The Buddha encourages you to return to the simplest understanding. You are hurting. You are human. And healing begins not with knowing why, but with seeing what is. The arrow must be removed first. The story behind it can wait. The Buddha guides your attention inward. "Where is your arrow?" he asks softly. "Is it an old memory you keep revisiting? A mistake you refuse to forgive yourself for? A fear you cannot soothe? A relationship you replay endlessly? A worry you try to predict from every angle?" You feel a subtle tightening in your chest as certain memories surface. Moments you've questioned for too long, wounds you've touched again and again. hoping the repetition would make them easier to bear. But the Buddha gently reminds you, understanding alone cannot heal. Overthinking cannot mend the heart. Only presence, compassion, and acceptance can. He encourages you to place a hand over your heart, breathing slowly, acknowledging the places where old arrows still live. Let yourself feel the tenderness, not with judgment, but with care. When you stop demanding explanations, the wound finally has space to breathe, to soften, to open. When you stop interrogating the pain, you create the conditions for healing. The Buddha explains that removing the arrow means turning your attention toward the present moment, toward the reality of what you feel, rather than the stories surrounding it. It means accepting uncertainty. It means choosing peace over analysis, calm over chaos. It means trusting that not every question needs to be answered to be released. The night air feels cooler now, brushing against your skin like a comforting hand. The trees sway gently as though nodding in agreement. You breathe more deeply, more freely, sensing the arrow loosening within you, not by force, but by understanding. And as the clearing grows quiet once more, the Buddha prepares to guide you into the next teaching, one that expands on this freedom, showing how a peaceful, awakened life is lived not in thought or theory, but through mindful awareness in every step, every word, every moment. With your heart lighter and your mind more open, he begins leading you toward the next chapter, the practice of living deliberately, with presence guiding the way. The story of the poisoned arrow settles quietly inside you, dissolving the urge to chase endless questions and softening the mind into a gentler, more spacious awareness. You feel a new clarity rising, an understanding that peace is not found in analyzing every detail, but in returning again and again to what is real, here, and alive. The Buddha senses this shift in you, the softening of your mental grip, the easing of your inner storms. And with that serene recognition, he begins to guide you toward a truth just as profound as any parable. That awakening is not found only in deep meditation or ancient forests, but also in the smallest, simplest moments of your daily life. He begins with the softest of invitations. Walk with awareness. You imagine yourself rising from your seated meditation beneath the Bodhi tree. The ground is cool under your feet, the night air gentle against your skin. As you take your first step, the Buddha asks you to feel the entire movement, lifting, moving, placing. You notice the texture of the earth, the subtle shifting of your weight, the quiet grounding that each step provides. Walking becomes more than transportation. It becomes a return to yourself. The Buddha explains that mindful walking is not about walking slowly or rigidly. It is about being fully present in each step. Whether your pace is calm or hurried, whether the road is smooth or uneven, awareness transforms each step into a moment of peace. Even in the middle of a busy day, even surrounded by noise, you can walk in such a way that each footfall reconnects you with the steadiness beneath your life. He gently expands the lesson. Eat with appreciation. You imagine a simple bowl of rice placed before you, warm, fragrant, nourishing. The Buddha asks you to look at it as though seeing food for the first time. You notice its shape, its warmth, the subtle scent rising from it. When you take a bite in your imagination, you taste each grain, each texture, each soft note of flavor. Eating becomes more than satisfying hunger. It becomes an act of gratitude. The Buddha reminds you that mindless eating, rushing, distracting yourself, consuming without awareness, robs the moment of its richness. But mindful eating allows you to savor not only the food, but also the countless hands and elements that brought it to your bowl. The farmers, the soil, the rain, the sunlight, the harvest, the preparation. Every bite becomes a connection to life itself. Then his voice softens even more. Rest with kindness. You imagine lying down after a long day, your body sinking into the earth or into your bed. Instead of collapsing into sleep without thought, you bring awareness to the act of resting. You notice the way the muscles loosen, the way the breath deepens, the way the body thanks you for allowing it to pause. Rest is no longer something you take for granted. It becomes a gentle offering to yourself. The Buddha shows you that peace is not something distant, not something earned through heroic effort, not something reserved for temples or meditation halls. Peace is already woven into the fabric of simple living. It appears when you pause long enough to notice the breath, when you listen to your footsteps, when you enjoy a meal without haste, when you give yourself permission to rest. He explains that ordinary moments are the perfect training ground for mindfulness because they are constant. You walk many steps each day. You eat every day. You rest every day. If you can bring awareness to these simple acts, your entire life becomes a meditation, not by withdrawing from the world, but by being fully awake within it. You feel this truth settling in your chest like a warm stone. You realize how many moments you've rushed through, how many breaths you hardly noticed, how many meals you consumed without tasting, how many steps you took without feeling grounded. But now, the possibility of a different way of living opens before you. A life where each ordinary moment holds a spark of the sacred. The Buddha encourages you to imagine your daily routines infused with awareness. Feeling the warmth of water as you wash your hands. Noticing the sound of wind brushing past your window. Sensing the shift of your breath when someone speaks kindly to you. Taking one conscious breath before responding to frustration. Pausing for a heartbeat to appreciate a flower, a cloud, a face, a moment that will never come again. These small acts, he says, shape the mind just as profoundly as formal meditation. They are the bridge between spiritual insight and real-world living. They show you that awakening is not separate from daily life. It is daily life, approached with curiosity, gentleness, and presence. In this realization, something within you softens even more. You feel yourself breathing with greater ease, as though each breath is a quiet gift. The night around you seems brighter, more alive, more intimate. Each sound and movement part of a larger harmony. And as the Buddha watches this growing peace within you, he prepares to guide you further, not toward escape or withdrawal, but toward a refuge that lives inside you everywhere you go. A sanctuary not made of wood or stone, but of calm awareness. With the same steady compassion as always, he begins leading you into the next chapter, the discovery of your inner refuge, the quiet shelter that remains untouched no matter what storms arise. The Buddha's words about mindfulness in ordinary life continue to echo gently inside you, revealing a truth both comforting and profound. Peace is not something you wait for, but something you cultivate moment by moment. You feel the night around you deepen, the air cooling, the stars burning a little brighter above the branches. Something inside you feels steady, steadier than before, almost as if a soft, glowing center has begun forming within your chest. The Buddha observes this quiet shift, and with a calm, knowing smile, he begins to guide you toward a truth that can carry you through every season of your life. He speaks of inner refuge, a sanctuary that does not depend on circumstances, places, or people. A refuge that exists not outside you, but within you. This sanctuary, he explains, is the heart's natural home, the place where your awareness rests when it is not tangled in thought, doubt, or fear. It is the quiet space beneath your worries, the stillness beneath your emotions, the calm beneath every storm. You do not need to go anywhere to find peace, the Buddha says softly. You only need to return to yourself. You breathe slowly, letting the truth of this settle. So often, you've searched for relief in the world, hoping for the right circumstances, the right people, the right timing. But each time, the peace you found faded when life shifted again. Now, the Buddha is showing you that there is a place untouched by change, a calm that cannot be taken away by uncertainty, a quiet that cannot be disturbed by the noise of the world. He invites you to bring your attention inward, not to your thoughts or your emotions, but to the stillness behind them. That quiet space you touched during meditation now expands, warm and spacious like the inside of a temple lit by candlelight. Imagine, the Buddha says, a room within your heart, a sanctuary built of calm. Its walls are made of your breath. Its light shines from your awareness. Its door is always open to you. You feel the image forming within you. Simple, intimate, safe. You step inside this imagined room, noticing the immediate shift. Your shoulders soften, your breath deepens, your chest loosens. It feels like sinking into warm water or being wrapped in a soft blanket after a long journey. This sanctuary is not a fantasy. It is the reflection of your natural state when fear and tension finally release their hold. The Buddha guides you to rest there. Here, he says, you meet yourself without judgment. You meet your breath without effort. You meet your emotions with tenderness. And in this meeting, you find the refuge you have always carried. You sense how different this sanctuary feels from the outer world. Nothing here demands anything from you. Nothing rushes you. Nothing pulls you into stories of past or future. Everything is quiet, steady, welcoming. The Buddha continues, explaining that this sanctuary is not meant only for peaceful nights beneath Bodhi trees. You can enter it when you feel overwhelmed, when someone's words sting, when anxiety tightens your chest, when grief rises unexpectedly, when confusion clouds your thoughts. All you need is a single breath of awareness, a gentle turning inward, a remembering, I have a refuge inside me. He shows you how to find it in daily life. When your mind feels scattered, place your hand on your heart and breathe. When stress rises, imagine the sanctuary opening like a door. When emotions swirl, picture yourself stepping into that quiet inner room. When life feels out of control, return to the center that never moves. This sanctuary, the Buddha says, is where you learn to rest, not by escaping life, but by embracing it with a quiet, steady heart. You begin to realize that this inner refuge is not only for your own comfort. The more you rest in it, the more compassion you have for others. When you feel grounded, you can listen more deeply. When you feel safe, you can offer safety. When you feel peaceful, your presence itself becomes a refuge for others. In this way, the inner sanctuary becomes a shared sanctuary, expanding outward through kindness and understanding. The Buddha speaks of unity now, how every being has this sanctuary within them, though many have forgotten it. When you see someone caught in anger, you recognize a heart that has lost its refuge. When you encounter someone overwhelmed by fear, you see a mind unable to find its inner room. This recognition softens the way you move through the world, awakening a quiet wish. May they find their refuge too. You feel this wish blooming gently inside your chest, warm and expansive. It fills your sanctuary with a soft glow, like a lantern placed in a dark window, guiding others home. The Buddha lets the silence deepen again, allowing you to rest fully inside this inner space. The forest around you seems to pause, breathing with you, holding your awareness in a shared stillness. And just when the calm feels complete, the Buddha's presence shifts slightly, preparing to guide you toward an even deeper understanding, one that reveals why suffering arises at all, and how this sanctuary helps you face it without fear. With a quiet breath, he begins to lead you into the next teaching, where the origins of suffering become pathways to wisdom. The dust of the road settled behind Ananda as he walked, his mind still resonant with the profound yet unsettling truths the Buddha had revealed in the sermon just concluded. It was a teaching on impermanence, sharp as a dagger, cutting through the illusion of permanence that humanity clung to. But the Buddha, the Tathagata, never left a wound unhealed. The understanding of loss was always paired with the balm of compassion, the final refuge. Ananda found a smooth stone under a sprawling banyan tree, its aerial roots draping like ancient beards, mirroring the aged wisdom of the man he followed. He sat, adopting the familiar posture, closing his eyes not to shut out the world, but to perceive its true nature beyond the screen of personal desire and aversion. The air was warm, smelling of sun-baked earth and distant wood smoke, a constant, gentle hum of existence. Listen to Buddha's teachings, India 500 BCE. He began his practice by returning to the breath, that faithful, tireless servant of the life principle, anchoring his scattered thoughts. Once the mind achieved a measure of stillness, he opened the door to the practice of metta-bhavana, the cultivation of loving kindness. He started with himself, sending waves of peace and well-wishing into his own being, a necessary step, for how could one offer a comfort they did not possess? May I be free from suffering. May I be well and peaceful. Then, the focus moved outwards, to the dear ones, the Buddha, the Sangha, and the villagers who offered their humble sustenance. He pictured their faces, etched with effort and hope, extending the blessing. May you be free from suffering. May you be well and peaceful. This stage was easy. The heart flowed naturally towards those it cherished. The true test, however, lay in the subsequent steps. He brought to mind those he found neutral, the merchant he'd passed yesterday, the cart driver on the road, the children playing in the dust. They were neither friends nor foes, yet they were sentient, equally subject to the wheel of suffering. He stretched his heart to encompass them, acknowledging their quiet struggle. May you be free from suffering. May you be well and peaceful. The most challenging step followed, extending compassion to the antagonist. He remembered the stern Brahmin who had scoffed at the Buddha's teachings, the petty jealousies that sometimes flared within the community. He did not ask to love their actions, but to acknowledge their fundamental humanity, their deep-seated ignorance, the root of their unkindness. To truly wish a tormentor well was to understand that their malice was merely the symptom of their own profound distress. May you be free from suffering. May you be well and peaceful. It took effort, a deliberate softening of the resistance, but as the wish was repeated, the walls of the heart began to dissolve. Now, the practice entered the boundless universal phase, karuna, the active wish for freedom from suffering. Ananda expanded the scope exponentially, moving beyond the individuals to all beings in the village, then the region, then the entirety of Jambudvipa, India. He imagined the teeming life, the patient oxen pulling the plow, the tiny insects under the banyan tree, the unseen spirits in the ether, the beings in other realms described by the Buddha. He saw them not as disparate lives, but as a single, vast ocean of consciousness, all bound by the twin chains of birth and death, all seeking happiness, all fleeing pain. The distinction between self and other became a foolish artifice, a line drawn in the sand by the ego. The suffering of the smallest field mouse became intrinsically linked to the suffering of the most powerful king, all part of the interconnected web of dependent origination. He didn't just wish them well. He felt the truth of their existence, the countless lifetimes they had endured, the momentary joys and inevitable sorrows. This wasn't pity, which carries a subtle hint of superiority, but sympathetic joy, mudita, a celebration of any happiness they experienced, and equanimity, upekkha, a steady gaze that accepted the natural ebb and flow of their karma without judgment. Ananda envisioned the light of compassion emanating from his heart, not as a beam, but as an expanding sphere, moving outward through the cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, extending upwards through the heavens and downwards through the earth, encompassing all realms, all moments in time, stretching into the vast, immeasurable expanse of the cosmos. The final culmination was a feeling of limitlessness. There was no corner of existence, no single being, from the lowest organism to the highest celestial being, that was excluded from the embrace of this boundless heart. This was the Buddha's final, silent instruction, that the profound emptiness realized through wisdom must be filled with the equally profound fullness of universal love. This limitless love was the true, ultimate refuge, a prepared vessel ready to receive the deepest truths of the final path. This meditation was not an end in itself, but the preparation for the last ultimate step. The night air of Kushinagar was still and heavy, carrying the distant scent of night-blooming jasmine and damp earth. Ananda had attended to the Tathagata with meticulous care, arranging the four-fold couch between the twin salai trees. Though the great teacher was resting, his presence, even in weakened form, filled the grove with an intense stillness, a calm that transcended the natural anxieties of his disciples. Ananda sat near the foot of the couch, watching the deep, steady rise and fall of the Buddha's breath. The moon, a silver crescent, offered a soft illumination, and by its light he saw the faces of the others gathered there. Old Mahakashyapa, his eyes alight with a fierce, contemplative understanding. The Venerable Sariputta, his composure absolute. And the younger monks, their eyes wet with a mixture of reverence and impending sorrow. They were witnessing not merely a physical ending, but the final, deliberate act of a perfected being. Listen to Buddha's teachings. India, 500 BCE. A slight movement from the couch drew Ananda's attention. The Buddha's eyes opened, clear and bright, though the body was failing. His gaze swept over the assembly, settling on each face with the same deep, unwavering compassion that had defined his 35 years of teaching. Monks, the Buddha's voice was softer than the rustle of the sala leaves, yet it carried perfectly in the quiet night. The teaching which I have given you is now concluded. I have withheld nothing. The lamp of the Dharma has been lit, and it is for you now to hold it steady against the winds of the world. His words were not a command, but a gentle reminder of their shared responsibility. He saw the grief in their eyes, the fear of losing their center, their guide. And so, he offered not more complex doctrine, but the ultimate reassurance. Do not let the disappearance of the physical form trouble you, he continued, a slow, tranquil smile touching his lips. The body is merely a heap of aggregates, impermanent and subject to decay. It has served its purpose, but that which is truly me, the eternal principle of the teaching, the Dhamma, and the discipline, that is your teacher now. Hold fast to it. Make it your island, your refuge. He paused, allowing the truth of impermanence to sink in, not as a source of pain, but as the fundamental ground of reality. He addressed the unspoken fear, the anxiety that they had not yet perfected their practice. Perhaps some among you have a doubt or perplexity concerning the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, or the path, he said, his voice an invitation. Do not have remorse later, thinking, we were face to face with the Master, yet we failed to question him. Ask now. Speak without reservation, friend. The silence that followed was profound, absolute. None spoke. Mahakashyapa eventually spoke for all, stating that every monk present was satisfied, certain of the teachings and the path ahead. The Buddha accepted their affirmation with a nod of equanimity. He had given them the means, and they had understood. Now, the last tether was gently severed. His final words were delivered with the simplicity of a deep truth spoken to a beloved friend. All conditioned things are subject to decay. Strive with diligence. Apamadena sampaditha. That was all. The summation of a lifetime of teaching. A final blessing of peace delivered in a single phrase. Persistence and mindfulness are the keys to liberation. The mind, fortified by this final instruction, knew exactly what was required. There was no need for panic, no call for hasty action, only the gentle, persistent application of the path. Ananda leaned closer, his heart heavy, yet strangely comforted. The Buddha closed his eyes again, his breathing slowing further, moving through the deep meditative states he had mastered. The light of the moon began to wane, giving way to the first cool breath of the pre-dawn. As the great teacher rested, his body poised for its final release, a sense of profound calm descended upon the grove. Ananda felt his own exhaustion finally claim him, an exhaustion born of years of service and the intense emotions of the preceding hours. He lay back, his body finding rest against the earth, his mind echoing the Buddha's final instruction to strive. Yet, in that striving, there was a great, gentle invitation to ease. The journey was not over, but for this moment, under the quiet observation of the sala trees, it was safe to let go, to entrust the world to the Dhamma, and to drift into a deep, untroubled, and calm sleep, knowing the Master had blessed their path with eternal peace.